All right, good evening. The time is 5:01 p.m. We'll go ahead and call this work session into order. Budget workshop number 4, work session in order, sorry. Our first item of business is a presentation of the city manager's FY27 budget estimate. Mr. Branham.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Before we get started, I'm going to go through, we kind of papered you over there up on the dais. And for those watching online and streaming, every single bit of this is available on our budget website. So I'll just point out all the documents. You have the budget memo from the court. It's got this red court logo on it. You have the budget memo from Public Works Department, which is a rather thick packet. All the divisions are represented there. You have the community development budget memo, which has the community development logo. It's at the top center. You have the budget estimate, the 22-page spreadsheet, and the accompanying guide to the budget is also up there. And it looks like this. It's the, no, that's the capital improvement plan. There is a guide up there that accompanies the spreadsheet. Should be 4 pages stapled together. You also have the Q&A, which is, I highly commend this. It's 39 pages, detailed reading from every department. We'll have a lot more to say about this, but that's up here as well. You have the capital improvement plan with narrative. So this is new from last week. It looks like this, got some highlighted part. It's 6 pages of narrative, and on the back is the spreadsheet. So now this is really a standalone document. Each of the projects that are mentioned has some text and some background information. And last but not least, the 2 documents that I'll speak to initially, my budget memo on behalf of the entire city and my PowerPoint slides. So there is a ton of material, and the staff here in the room with us have worked very, very hard to prepare all this, and I will kick us off. Thank you, Summer. And by the way, I should acknowledge Summer standing in for Tracy. Doing a great job. Thank you, Summer. Thank you for this continued opportunity to lead the City of Red Bank and the dedicated and talented staff that comprise this exceptional team. Okay, next slide, please. Here's what I'm going to present tonight. Mission and vision. We're going to review the dates. Take a look at all the materials that comprise the budget packet. Then we'll get into my city manager's estimate in some detail. Review the commission goals, some of the past ones and the present one. Briefly describe where you can find out more. And then we'll look at the budget adoption process and then how to wrap up. The mission from the 5th annual retreat and adopted by resolution, the City of Red Bank is a safe and thriving community with an engaging, transparent government that builds on our rich history, provides excellent and efficient services, and welcomes all. Vision, also from the same retreat, Red Bank strives for a vibrant, growing, and inclusive community by pursuing excellence, enhancing safety, celebrating our neighborhood character, and stewarding our natural landscapes. So here's a quick look at the budget dates. We've seen this slide before. We're now in the middle of the slide. It may date 20th of April, the 4th of 4 budget workshops. As I described, April is a month of discussion, and we'll continue that discussion tonight. Then we move into May, which is largely discernment, and June, which is decision. So the dates to note coming up is next Tuesday during a regular session date, but we'll start early at 4:30, the open discussion during work session. Following Tuesday the 12th, we have our first ever budget town hall. At least I think it's the first ever, certainly in the way we've set this up, and that will be at the community center. And then we're anticipating first and second reading on 19 May and 2 June at regular commission dates. Here's a preview of all the things that are in the budget packet, and I won't spend a lot of time on this because we're going to go over it again, but it's all available on the budget button on the city's front webpage, or you can navigate to it by going into departments, administration and finance, and on the finance page, and then scroll down, you'll see FY27 budget development. And right below it is all the FY26 stuff, and right below that is legacy information from previous fiscal years as well. It is a wealth of budget information. And honestly, it's a primer on local government at this point, for other cities who might want to benchmark. The city manager's budget estimate. Okay, here's where I get into it. This memo and presentation transmits the FY27 budget estimate to the Red Bank Commission for the fiscal year beginning 1 July 2026 and ending 30 June 2027. This budget estimate includes the following key components. Requests a 16-cent property tax increase in FY27 and forecasts a need for an additional 16-cent property tax increase in FY28. This sets the property tax rate at $1.29 for FY27. We're at $1.13 now. This tax rate uses approximately $804,000 of fund balance, but projects an adequate ending fund balance of $6.7 million, about 53% of expenditures. At this point, I'm going to go forward a slide and talk a little bit more about how we got to the 16 cents. So this is a look at our current tax rate across the top. Let me orient to this little bit of an Excel spreadsheet here. The columns across the top from the left is the tax rate. One over to the right is the property tax revenue that tax rate would generate. Further to the right would be the overall total revenue to the city that tax rate would generate. And then at that tax rate, with this budgeted expenditure, that would be the fund balance we get at the end of fiscal year 27. So that first tax rate proposes $1.6 million use of fund balance. The next column over to the right is the projected ending fund balance at the end of fiscal year 27, so about a year hence. And then the last column on the right is the ending fund balance as a percent of expenses. So you see right away, when you look at the top row at the current tax rate of $1.13, with the current budget estimate, we use $1.6 million of fund balance, and we wind up below 50% of our projected expenses, which is a red line. That's why it's in red at 46%. This is unacceptable to our chief financial officer. It isn't necessarily in problematic territory via the comptroller. We could actually go a little lower. But given the magnitude of our projects, it would make cash flow very challenging. So this is why our CFO, Chris Pickle, says 113 is a no-go. How am I doing? Okay. Now I'm going to skip to the bottom, $1.45. Then explain that line. That line is, if you scan over to the middle, use of fund balance, $73. That's essentially not using any fund balance, putting $73 back. So if we had a tax rate of $1.45 for this budget, we would spend exactly what we're going to take in taxes. But $1.45 is in red because staff felt that was too big of an ask. We've got some experience here in the last couple of years, and the feedback from the community was, don't make big changes suddenly. So we went back and discussed it, and the difference between $1.13 and $1.45 is 32 cents. So we split it in half, 16 cents. And that is how we got to $1.29 for that middle row. And that's why in my estimate, I request 16 cents this year and another 16 cents next year. That would ultimately get us up to the $1.45, where our revenues would match our projected expenses. Well, let's do a little dive into the $1.29 line, which is actually what the additional 16 cents would project. So it would generate a property tax revenue of $6.5 million, a total revenue of a tick over $12 million. We would project a use of fund balance of about $804,000. So a significant use of fund balance, but the ending fund balance is still healthy at $6.7 million. And scanning over to the right, we're above half of our projected expenses, which is in the green zone by the CFO's criteria. Above 50%, we wind up about 53%. So I'm going to go back and just continue my ticking down my list of key features of the overall budget estimate, but that is an explanation of the proposed 16 cent tax increase. Next bullet down, Of course, this addresses all 5 commission goals, and we will talk more about that. We remain competitive as an employer of choice with a 2.25% COLA. Cost of living adjustment for all employees to keep pace with inflation and continue to attract and retain top talent, such as those in the room with me now. For additional COLA information and other budget background information, please see the FY27 budget Q&A document. There is a full description of how we calculated our COLA and a look back at our past COLAs in that Q&A document, and I highly commend it. Personnel adjustments are an important aspect of every budget. In addition to the COLA, the budget proposes an overall reduction of 1 full-time equivalent, 1 staff member, for a total of 84 full-time employees for FY27. Additionally, we are redeploying 1 FTE to Public Works in anticipation of greater demands on the Streets Division as they fulfill their duties to both streets and parks. We have reclassified 4 employees due to significant changes in their duties, including Public Relations Manager, IT Director, Parks and Capital Projects Director, and Municipal Planner. This proposal also includes market adjustments in personnel areas due to market changes, including police, fire, laborer, and court clerk. A second slide of key attributes of this budget estimate. For a second year, this budget estimate sustains the City of Red Bank 100% match of the county's portion of property tax relief for the approximately 138 Red Bank residents in the tax relief program, which assists qualified taxpayers over 65, approximately 116, and 100% disabled veterans, approximately 22. Altogether, the total budget estimate for Red Bank's tax relief match is approximately $26,000. This tax relief program is widely viewed as very effective means to help qualified Red Bank residents stay in their home who would otherwise struggle to make property tax payments and are at risk of losing their home. To our knowledge, Red Bank is the only municipality in Hamilton County to offer this property tax relief. Sunset the CARTA Caravan Paratransit service at the end of calendar year 26. Unfortunately, the costs per trip are rising significantly. If the funding formula remains fare plus municipal contribution only, then there really is no way to sustain the service without additional revenue support. If additional revenue support is introduced, perhaps by Hamilton County or from a grant that CARTA obtains, then our continued participation may be revisited. But given where we stand currently, this budget estimate ends our participation at the end of calendar year 2026. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Creates the city's first ever capital improvement program, CIP, with a 5-year planning horizon from FY27 through FY31. The CIP is where the rubber meets the road on parks, facilities, vehicles and equipment, and transportation projects, and the resources necessary. The CIP roadmap will shape the Red Bank of tomorrow. Lastly, and not leastly, sustain a level of service delivery excellence across all municipal services delivered across all 6 departments: police, fire, court, administration and finance, public works, and community development. The accompanying budget memos from each department speak to their priorities and budget requirements. Please review each department's budget memo to hear directly from the chiefs, clerk, and directors. Always good to remind ourselves of commission goals. But first, a quick look at last year's goals. And just off the top of my head, develop a new land conversion rate, TDEC and NPS. Well, we've submitted it and all but have it done. And that will unlock millions of dollars of grant money to the City of Red Bank over time. Massive accomplishment. The city's been chipping away at that for a long time, but we're on the cusp of that, and that is a very satisfying check on that goal. Create priorities for safe streets, curtailing speeding, enhancing pedestrian walkability, and protected cycling routes. So many examples. Our first ever bike lanes on the south end of town, new school zones, redefined school zones, reduced speeds, reconfigured the geometry of the road on the north end, imminent. A traffic safety working group that meets regularly and unified city staff, flashing crosswalks in several locations, new trails, and so much more. I feel like we really knocked it out of the park in terms of that second goal. Launch strategic economic development efforts to attract investment, support local businesses, and strengthen the community. I'd like to highlight the work of our public relations manager, Summer Shelton, and the work that she does to highlight new businesses, spotlight local businesses, and create buzz around businesses in Red Bank in our digital platforms. And our building official, we hang our hat on our service delivery and our building official. When somebody comes to Red Bank and wants to build something, we meet with them, we talk with them, we meet them on site. We are Johnny on the spot. When they call for inspection, it's not days or weeks, it's hours, if not minutes. And people, we stand out, we've distinguished ourselves as our city for our excellence in service delivery and that building us official space, and that matters. People like to come into Red Bank and build things. And lastly, and absolutely not leastly, the Tennessee Downtowns, acceptance into that program, and the future that foreshadows. Implementation of the Parks Master Plan. Well, we are hitting it out of the park, and there's no stronger testament of that than the Godsey Ridge. We were all just at a ribbon cutting, and also the capital improvement plan itself, which really lays out how we develop the North End Park, the former Red Bank Middle School site, the Bike Boulevard. We're talking about White Oak Connector Phase Next. I could go on and on, all the things that are happening in the park space. But I also want to mention a vibrant and thriving Park and Rec Advisory Board. We have really positioned ourselves with the plan and the advisory board and top talent on staff and grant applications. We're kind of hitting out of the park, pun intended. Low cost activation of city property by making improvements. Well, we have several examples of that too. One of them is, again, the Project Diabetes, which didn't cost the city any direct dollars to execute that project. But I would like to highlight the traffic garden. That was a piece of forlorn asphalt that nobody paid any attention to, and now it's a destination. I don't know that there's a better example of low-cost activation of city-owned property than the traffic garden next to Fire Station 2. And also, I want to highlight the excellent staff work of teeing up for sale the goods and parcels. Those have been forgotten for over 30 years. City-owned land that nobody even knew we had, and now we're going to get revenue, and more importantly, put it back into use in a beautiful neighborhood. It's heartwarming. So, low-cost activation. That's a look at our past goals, and I stand before you very satisfied with not only what staff has done, but the goals themselves, which reflect back on the thoughtfulness of the commission that established them. They hit the spot. They resonated with the community. Staff was able to execute against them. We were resourced for them and empowered to do them. And the collaboration between the commission that set those goals and staff to execute against them is really magnificent to look back at this point in time. Looking forward, here's our goals that were coming out of the most recent commission strategic planning retreat earlier in February. Develop safe streets for all, a comprehensive and safe multimodal transportation network for all users. Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey and Public Works. Finalize capital improvement plan and prioritize projects, Commissioner Holmes and Community Development. Restore sewer expansion options, explore sewer expansion options following the adoption of the Unified Development Code, Vice Mayor Berry and Community Development. Implementation of Parks and Recreation Master Plan, including activation of the former Red Bank Middle School site and National Park Service compliance through development of the Hickson site. Commissioner Wilkinson and Public Works. Pursue removal of Stringer's Branch from the state's impaired water list, Mayor Belton and Community Development. Where can I find out more? Well, we've done our best to make it easy to do just that. I encourage everyone, let's see, let me get my notes here again. I encourage everyone to read through the tremendous compilation of information available under the heading of FY27 Budget Development on the Finance webpage. There we will find all 6 department budget memos, the FY27 budget estimate spreadsheet, and the accompanying guide to the FY27 budget, the FY27 budget Q&A, again, I can't go a little bit more into that. So what's happening with fire in Red Bank? Well, there's a long section from your fire chief that explains the nature of fire, the impending high-rise development, the need for staffing, what will trigger his ask for additional staffing in the short term, and what his vision for staffing is in the long term. It's a fascinating read, and I commend the fire section in particular, but there's more. Why do we have 26 sworn officers? Chief Seymour has explained it by benchmarking of other departments nationally and regionally, and that analysis in the budget Q&A. How do we get to our COLA? That analysis in the Q&A. All the personnel changes that I just ticked off, they're explained in detail in the Q&A. Why do we have a court of concurrent jurisdiction, and what is that? That's in the budget Q&A. Not corporate. And so much more. So please, check out the budget Q&A. And there's also supporting documents. The proposed jobs by grade, which outlines everybody's pay, and the FY27 capital improvement plan is also there, and more. Quick look at the budget adoption process. We're kind of in the middle of the page right there where we're talking about the property tax rate, and I'm officially submitting the budget estimate. I mentioned the town hall earlier on the 12th at 5 at the community center, and the 2 readings of the budget ordinance coming up on the 19th of May, the 2nd of June. At that point, it becomes the adopted budget, and then it's in our CFO's hands to submit it officially in a very unique and specialized format to the comptroller within a timeline that will make us eligible for a certificate of budget excellence. I love this slide. I show it every time I get a chance. These are the people, divisions, departments, agencies, businesses, and nonprofits who deliver services to the residents and businesses of Red Bank 24/7, 365. 84 direct staff, but down on the lower left, I list a lot of our key partners. We can't do this alone, and we are well supported by a rich network of key partners. I will end where I began. Thank you for this continued opportunity to lead the city of Red Bank and the dedicated and talented staff that comprise this exceptional team. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Granum. Do we have any comments or questions at this time?
I have some comments about CARTA, but I don't know if we should talk about that now or wait until Leslie's presentation or wait until general budget discussion. Maybe Mayor.
I mean, I think it's up to us. I don't have any comments at this time, but whoever else might have comments or questions, please feel free to ask them
Well,
or share them.
I just, I'm highly uncomfortable with the idea of cutting CARTA paratransit services. I don't really see how that, I do understand that it does cost money and that the price is going up, but terminating our only transit service that exists in the city of Red Bank right now, I do not see how that supports our unanimously adopted commission goal of a comprehensive and safe multimodal transportation network for all users. I haven't heard yet, and maybe we will, any suggestion of what would replace that service for our residents who need it. If I have to go door to door campaigning this fall, I would much rather look my neighbor in the face and explain to them why they have to pay a few more cents in property taxes than to look my neighbor in the face and explain why paratransit can't bring her husband back from memory care to visit her at home once a week. Why, somebody who hasn't been able to hold down a job before because they have epilepsy has to lose their job that they've only recently been able to acquire because we've had this service for 3 years, lose that independence and lose that income stream because their other neighbors don't want to pay that extra few cents. So I feel very strongly about that budget item in particular. I know Leslie may have more to say about it during her presentation, but I just had to share those thoughts as soon as it came up in budget discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Do we have any other comments or questions at this time?
I would like to hear if that will be the numbers, whenever they come up, if they
Mhm.
come up.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item 2, items for discussion. Our first presentation is our Public Works Department presentation with Director Tate.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. All right, so instead of me talking for 2 hours, like normally happens, you're gonna hear from, well, I'll tell you a little story right quick. My grandfather, when I was a teenager, and we had all of my aunts and uncles and cousins over at their house for a family reunion, my grandfather looked at my grandmother and said, "Whiz, Will, Annabelle, look what you did." So I want to say, Commission, look what you did. I have brought all my direct reports tonight. Every one of them manages a portion of the budget that's before you, and every one of them can talk to their portion of the budget and what they're going to do with it. So we're going to allow them to speak. So I don't have to talk for 2 hours. But we are pleased to present this fiscal year 2027 budget, and it reflects strategic planning, fiscal stewardship, and our continued commitment to exceptional services for our Red Bank residents. And this year's budget reduces costs in select divisions. It leverages sponsorship, and I should have put in there, and grants and community donations to support key programs that the Commission has been striving for these years, and the high quality services that our community expects. All right. At the same time, we, as the city manager mentioned, we are providing a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for our hardworking employees, and it sustains our excellent benefits package to ensure that we are able to recruit the most highly qualified labor force for the city of Red Bank. And overall, this budget strengthens operations, supports employees, preserves outstanding service delivery, and defines the public works in Red Bank. Over the past 3 years, the Commission has strengthened organizational accountability by staffing our 3 primary public works divisions with dedicated supervisors, as I just pointed out, and while also assigning experienced managers to the smaller budgets, such as facilities, parks, and fleet. Thank you. You're reading my mind. This structure ensures clear leadership across all department budgets, provides consistent administration of daily operations and long-term planning. As part of this year's process, each supervisor and manager will present their individual budgets to the Commission, and offering transparency, ownership, and a clear view of the needs and priorities within their respective areas. My portion of the Public Works budget presentation tonight will be to outline some personnel changes along with legacy transportation projects, also known as capital projects, that are currently under contract with the city, along with potential future projects and their status. The current projects under contract, as you've heard me say over and over and over again, resurfacing from Browntown to Gad Road, which hopefully will be completed by the end of June. So that one will come off the list. We'll concentrate on ADA sidewalk connectivity, the low water bridge replacement, and the Red Bank Bicycle Boulevard. And I've prepared some slides that just briefly goes over each of those. The resurfacing, the current funding requirement, the city has a 20% cost match, and this year there will be a $125,000 requirement, or actually a $235,000 requirement in this year's budget that will not be in the capital budget that Leslie prepared. It'll be in this budget, but that project will terminate this fiscal year, and then we won't see it anymore. But that's going to wind up being somewhere around $235,000, closes this year. The funding is coming from $110,000 was set aside in the original contract from the general fund. And then a couple of years ago, the Commission had to add money to that before TDOT, because of construction costs rising. We had to add an additional $125,000 at the state street aid that will be coming out of it. The replacement of the low water bridge, it's currently in the right of way phase. Last time I talked to TDOT, they're waiting for the MPO to release the fiscally constrained funding to add to the project before they will release a notice to proceed. And so we're right there. I feel like that we'll probably get something here in the next few days, and we'll be able to push this forward. Same with the upgrades from Newberry to Signal Mountain Road. Again, it's waiting on that fiscally constrained money, which the MPO is expected to release $317,000 in additional funds. The low water bridge was $1.16 million in additional funds to make that project. It was woefully underfunded from the beginning, but we'll get those two caught up. And then Red Bank Bicycle Boulevard, and the funding strategy for this, you won't see it on the CIP, because for the next 2 years, we hope that this project's wrapped up in 28. And for the next 2 years, we'll pay our matching funds, which is around 150,000 will come out of the 27 and 28 State Street aid fund. So there's no impact to the general fund on that. That will be straight State Street aid fund. And then, of course, the additional money, 514,000 from the MPO for a fiscally constrained project. Prioritized projects that currently do not have contracts would be the sidewalk grouping. And I think I discussed this briefly last commission meeting. It's a set of 3 sidewalks, Browntown, Morrison Springs, and Greenleaf to Newberry Street, that are baked into the upcoming CIP. But the funding will be available to FY28. And then the Ashmore Avenue repair, there's actually $912,000 coming from the MPO. That's a lot of money that they're gifting us, but it won't be available till FY29. And some highlights that I just picked out. This budget provides for a restructuring of 1 full-time position for a parks manager. I had deputy director of capital delivery. I think city manager and I we need to sync up on that. But that's something that will be developed before this job actually kicks off on July 1st. This budget also includes a new laborer 2 that the city manager spoke about, repurposing 1 staff into a laborer 2 with a focus on parks. They'll work through the street department or street division, but with a focus on parks, which will be 1 of 6 that was recommended by our Parks Master Plan. And then this budget eliminates the position of the engineering technician, which that is the swap that is going to be made. These changes are basically affected by pay grade increase or decrease, and without additional funding of a new FTE. And with that, I will turn my folks loose, and we're going to go basically in what I consider department order: streets, solid waste, stormwater, parks, facilities, and then I'll briefly speak about fleet. Mr. Bell is not here tonight, and then we'll let the circus begin.
Thank you, Director Tate.
Then I'll follow up with some additional slides.
Perfect. Good evening,
Hi,
Mr. Burnett.
Good evening. It's good to see you all again.
Good to have you.
So I'm going to be presenting this evening the proposed budget highlights for both the streets department and the State Street aid budgets. Well, I'm going to start by going over some of our core responsibilities in the streets department, and then talk about some of the things we've accomplished so far this year, and then get into the proposed budget for fiscal year 27. Hey, look at tree. So I put this here just to talk about the things we do. This was an instance where there was a storm, so it fell under storm response, but it also encompassed clearing the right of way, making it so it was safe to pass. A lot of different things falling into one response, because we're responsible for infrastructure, as I mentioned, the right of way, traffic signals, street signs, a multitude of different things. So first, we're going to talk about our operations up to this stage, or up to this point in the fiscal year, and then we're going to go on to our role, talk about the budgeting, proposed budget for next fiscal year, and then close up with a role. So in the streets department, we have roadway maintenance, we repair potholes, we do all kinds of stuff related to extending the lifespan of the road. We also, as I mentioned, traffic signal and sign maintenance. We clear the right of way, and then we have emergency and storm response. So far this year, the 526 work orders, we've finished more since I created this PowerPoint, but overall, well over 500 work orders with 20 different distinct work types. Our core services, as I mentioned, vegetation management, roadway maintenance, traffic safety, and just upkeep of city-owned properties. Operational challenges is, as with the "hey, look, it's a tree" picture, it was one type of work order that bundled multiple different types of work that we have to be able to complete fairly quickly. And we strive to ensure safe, functional, and accessible transportation infrastructure for citizens. So far to date, we've repaired over 75 potholes, improved roadway conditions. We've replaced over 100 street signs. We've dedicated over 450 labor hours to clearing the right of way, city property upkeep, stuff like that. We've completed over 33 repairs supporting safe and efficient vehicle and pedestrian movement at intersections, which is traffic signal, crosswalk repairs, things like that. So as far as the streets budget, our priorities fall into three main levels of importance. Maintenance and preservation focus. We work on the roads quite a bit. We want to maintain staffing levels. We currently have, well, it just went from 2 Labor One openings to 3, as we've had a couple employees move to the solid waste division as kind of a move up in pay. So we're short 3 employees in the streets department. And so I really hope we can maintain that and rehire those 3 positions so that we can handle everything that we've been tasked with so far. And last, employee training. We always want to improve and learn more so that can expand, give us a bigger toolbox to work out of. So these are just some changes related to the proposed budget for its budget for fiscal year 27. Travel has had a 40% decrease because luckily with training, we can do a lot of training online and get a lot of safety certifications online, and we don't have to go to Nashville or Murfreesboro or Knoxville. And then with small items of equipment, the proposed budget on that line has a 25% decrease, mainly because a lot of small items of equipment aren't as easy to get right now. And we're hoping that means we'll maintain the equipment that we have and not ask for y'all to pay for more stuff. And safety supplies. So that's a significant increase. It's doubled. And part of that is PPE and employee protective equipment is a big part of safety supplies, and prices on that stuff has gone up quite a bit. And one thing that a lot of people don't take into account with safety supplies is that also contains traffic control devices. So when we have to get more cones, traffic cones, barricades, stuff like that, that actually falls under the safety supplies umbrella. One thing that's important to note is the proposed budget does not include any capital requests. As much as I would like for us to get like a big new truck or maybe a mini excavator, I'm going to wait a year or 2 before I ask for that. So that's a pretty significant number that's not going to be in there. Now, our debt service has caused an increase in the operational budget, but overall, the request for fiscal year 27 is almost $61,000 less than the current fiscal year budget. And for the state street aid side, that budget, some changes to take note of is for contracted services. It's almost a 50% increase from last year, or for current year. We're really hoping to accomplish quite a few improvements with guardrails, whether it be replacing them or painting them and repairing them. We also would like to do more striping, because if you drive around, there's a lot of areas that need better striping, and that's a safety issue for pedestrians and motorists. And would also help with just other roadway improvements, asphalt patching, improving curbs throughout town. Signal light maintenance, that's another significant increase, a 60% increase. It goes from $25,000 to $40,000. Our traffic signals require a great deal of maintenance and repair, whether it's because somebody collided with a pole or a lot of different things. We have to troubleshoot them or have someone come in and troubleshoot them on a fairly regular basis. We have to alter the timing, all kinds of different things. And lastly, street signs. That line shows, the proposed line shows a 25% reduction. Greg and I both feel that even with that reduction, we'll still be able to maintain the service required on signs. This year, we've had to order quite a few more because of striping projects and things like that we might not need to order as much upcoming year. And lastly, overall, the budget of the State Street Aid Fund is to enhance public safety and satisfaction, prolong life of existing infrastructure, and continue to work towards fulfilling commission goals like safe streets. So, summary and takeaways. We've done pretty well so far this current fiscal year. We've completed, over 500 work orders, and we're hoping to do a lot more than that. The proposed budget for FY27, so that we can maintain what we do and improve upon it. Obviously, staffing levels, hopefully we can rehire for the guys that have left us. And then we want to be proactive with maintenance and improvements and catch things more head on instead of after they've happened. And just ask for approval with the budgets and we can go from there.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Barnett.
Thank y'all.
Do we have any questions or comments at this time? Yes, ma'am?
Oh, no, one thing I noticed in your memo that I didn't see you mention specifically was that you had some training planned for your division specifically to maintenance signal boxes.
Hopefully, yes, there's a few different, or a couple of different companies that offer pretty extensive training, anywhere from 3 days to a week. And it's hands-on, in-person training. It would actually require going to Knoxville or Decatur, Alabama. That would definitely help in troubleshooting in certain maintenance aspects of it. For example, if there's a storm, a lightning strike close by, and then it puts the lights on flash, and then maybe we have to swap out a controller or something like that. That's something that I would be able to do if I get a little bit more training. Now, we still, replacing signal lights, like stuff like that on Christmas Day when the light got destroyed, that's something that would require a significant amount more training, that something more than likely we would continue to contract out through the contracted services.
But right now, even for the first repair that you were describing, we'd have to rely on a contractor
For the most part, yeah.
on their schedule to come out and make that repair. So we might be able to get our signals back up more quickly if we have that training in-house.
Hopefully, yes. And even with timing, we can alter the timing on signal lights, but it takes much longer as we have to go out there and do it manually in the cabinet, whereas getting the proper training and things like that, I would potentially be able to do it through the GridSmart system, which is an online remote system that I could do directly from my office if I have the little more training and I'm not as ignorant to the process, if that makes sense.
Very cool. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? All right. Thank you so much.
Caleb will be followed by Scott Johnson.
Good evening.
My presentation is not as fancy as Caleb's, and I'm sorry I saw you guys. Anyways, so, first, I'll tell you a little bit of story on solid waste. Most people don't really think about it, but before most people have their first cup of coffee, our crews are out checking out the trucks, making sure everything's running right. And in solid waste, that does, the scheduled day doesn't always go as planned. Tires may be flat, trucks won't start, so on and so on. So when planning this budget out, I sat down, because I know we're working on tightening the belt, and went through, what's something we can cut, what's something, we can put off that we don't need to do. So with that, we'll start the presentation and I'll get back with that. Solid waste is one of the most visible parts of the public works, because we're out there every day seeing, they're picking up trash, picking up brush, bulk trash. We're pretty much running daily, every truck. We've got, as far as work orders, this was up about a week and a half ago. So we've done more since then, but we've completed 4,700 work orders between bulk trash, brush, dead animals. We do used tire pickup, used oil pickup. But most of that was for the bulk trash pickup. We did 1,762 brush pickups up till, like I said, about a week and a half ago. 238 backyard clippings, 105 can repairs or replacements. We did 83 missed garbage collections, or if someone forgot to put it out. We provided 29 new service or cans for service and 18 dead animals. 2,767 tons of household garbage, nearly 500 pounds per year per resident. 1,975 bulk trash pickups, including the large household items that cannot be put in the blue cans. Here's the used tire and bulk oil, or the used oil that we provide. And kind of a graph on just what all we did last year. A total of 4,021 tons. 112 tons of leaves, 706 tons of brush. But go to, while the budget is necessary, we provide a lot of service, obviously, but as far as our budget, waste disposal is constantly going up. Fuel, we know, is going up. Tires, regular truck maintenance is something to help keep the employees safe and equipment dependable. Training wise, I cut training down except for a CDL compliance that we need to do and is required. I did include a capital item that was actually approved in the 26 budget for 2 replacement trucks for the current 17 and 18-year-old trucks that we have in the fleet. They just have not come in yet. So that is a basically a rollover plan, not an expansion. But I tried to just get the budget right where it needs to be without adding things that were not necessary. This is to get us through. We don't, we've had quite a bit of expenditures in maintenance last year, but we don't foresee anything major right now. Of course, anything can happen. Yeah, exactly, a lot of that. But that is currently, and I did not do like Caleb and put which I should have, put my numbers on the slides, but it is in the memo or the summary for our budget for FY27. Fleet is critical. Here, talking about the safety and training. We added a little bit, I believe, on, the, PPE, just because we are in need of some upgrades on that for some of the guys. One other area that we've had was overtime. We ran over and overtime, and that partially due because now Leslie is full-time at the recycle center. So our guys have to fill in sometimes, and that caused our budget to go over last year. But in summary, the solid waste division completed thousands of service requests. Most of them directly tied to household garbage, bulk trash, brush removal, and that residents rely on year round. Solid waste division proposed the FY27 budget. Not about expanding services this fiscal year. It is just about maintaining fiscal responsibility and service reliability, protecting public health, and responsibly managing the city's resources, and addressing rising disposal costs, along with aging equipment. This budget would allow us to continue delivering that dependable professional service to the citizens of Red Bank as they deserve. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Just as a point of reference, I was just looking, the numbers you were talking about. So the total operations budget request is 513,624. And you said represents a $50,815 operational increase. Is that right?
So
In this memo?
I think that memo needs to be updated since
Okay,
we went back and took out some more, I think, since that got printed.
okay.
I can get you those updates though in the morning.
Okay.
Page 19, Mayor, I could, in the budget spreadsheet, is where we show the solid waste summary. And that probably is the most current numbers. Page 19. That's all.
Mr. Johnson, do you happen to recall from this memo that we have what had been removed since?
We lowered, let's see, I know we lowered the supply budget.
Okay.
We lowered the vehicle maintenance budget to.
You don't have to give me exact numbers, just
Those were
curious what
lower.
categories.
We had lowered the training budget. We'd taken out travel plus anything extra besides just the CDL train or refresh. And we lowered the small items of equipment. We lowered the contract on as far as temporary labor. We cut back on that and
Quite a bit.
yeah, we went back and did a lot of cuts where, we needed, or where we could, but kept, what was necessary. We can't change, obviously, as far as how much, the transfer stations charge, can't charge or change how much diesel is. So anything like that, we left, but, we cut everything we could to, around that to try to lower our overall budget.
Okay, thank you.
Question about, so if we're looking at page 19 of the budget estimate. And we're showing a negative, the $241,790.
Mayor, I'll address that at the end of the presentation.
Okay, well then, just kidding.
Well, I can speak to it.
For now.
I can speak to it now, Mayor. Periodically, the solid waste fee is adjusted, and so usually it's adjusted up a little higher, and then for the next several years, we tend to draw down the fund balance and then make a solid waste fee adjustment. And we're not proposing to make a solid waste fee adjustment. And this is probably the last year where we'll be able to do that. And so for the next budget year, certainly, we're probably gonna have a conversation about what the solid waste fee should be. And that would plus the fund up, and then we'd have a couple of years of drawing down any fund balance. And I think that's baked into the strategy here.
Thank you. Do you, or you, I know you said you're gonna touch on this again, but do you happen to recall the last time we did an increase in our,
It's never been raised since 2009 when the ordinance was adopted.
okay, I kind of thought so. It's been $192 a year since 2009.
Remarkable that we've been
And
able to hold it together for that long.
So we've been able to do that. Since COVID though, that's when you really started to see a change.
Mhm.
Everything, as far as parts for vehicles, fuel, tires, everything went up, and it's really not come back down. So we've started seeing that everything's changing.
Right.
Well, we've adjusted almost everything else for inflation at this point, but
Except
yeah,
for-
solid waste
Except for solid
hasn't,
waste.
hasn't seen that benefit yet.
Okay, noted. Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this time? Oh, Commissioner?
When someone substitutes for Leslie at the recycle center, that's overtime?
That's
Or
over
it shifts?
unless sometimes we can basically flex that time if the employee knows ahead of time and can plan for that. But if, say she calls in sick that day, they're already here, we can't do anything about that, so that ends up being overtime.
Okay.
And then also it helps provide if we need, help in the Christmas parade or the Jubilee, or if, if a storm comes through and somebody gets called in, it helps to cover that.
So when she has a vacation and it's planned, then you can move one
A lot
from,
of times we can work to move someone, and like I said, unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way, but a lot of times we can move one if we've got enough coverage.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. All right, remind me what's next,
He will be
Director Tate.
followed by Mr. Lewis Brill and Stormwater.
Excellent.
Thank you guys for having me this evening. My colleagues did not tell me that we were not wearing our uniforms. We decided to wear that. I will be holding a grudge against them.
Well, you look fabulous.
Very professional.
So while I didn't include in my presentation fiscal year 26 highlights, what I can speak to is that the Stormwater Division within Public Works comprises a vast diversity of work that we complete every year. This work spans the gamut of street sweeping, ditch maintenance, culvert repair, catch basin maintenance, and construction, and much, much more. Over the previous fiscal year of 26, we have completed, I think we're pushing over 600 work orders at this point. And the work we have just been doing has just been extraordinary. With Red Bank's topography between two ridges, keeping our stormwater flowing as it should downhill to Stringer's Branch and then out of the jurisdiction at the southern end of the city is a key focus. And the intent with the proposed fiscal year 27 budget is to ensure that our division has the equipment, training, and operational capacity to ensure that our beautiful city is flood resilient and ready to handle any storm that comes our way. So the Stormwater Division mission for fiscal year 27, I've written it, it's in the packet, I'll go and read that to you guys. The mission of the City of Red Bank Public Works Stormwater Division is to safeguard the community by managing stormwater systems with efficiency, professionalism, and environmental stewardship. We are committed to strengthening operational performance through continuous improvement, advanced training, and the adoption of best practices. Our division will strive in the coming fiscal year to deliver reliable, high-quality services that protect infrastructure, enhance public safety, and meet the expectations of the citizens we serve. Through proactive maintenance, strategic planning, and a dedication to excellence, we will work to ensure a resilient, responsive, and forward-thinking stormwater program for the City of Red Bank. In this proposed fiscal year 27 budget, we intend to support the Stormwater Division mission while maintaining service levels. We will be investing in the stormwater team by equipping them with the tools that they need to do their work safely and efficiently, training them in the latest protocols for safe operations and best stormwater infrastructure management practices, and expanding our abilities with new technology that will aid in our decision-making and our workflow. Focusing on proactive repairs and maintenance to our city's stormwater infrastructure to get ahead of the next big storm that comes our ways, opposed to reacting after the fact. And we will improve our team's efficiency, safety, and responsiveness in the work that we do and the service that we provide to our community, and maintain the required levels of service while also expanding our ability to meet future demands. As I mentioned, investing in our stormwater team is a really big focus for fiscal year 27. There will be a renewed focus on training, safety, and professional development. Some of the expanded training that we'll be pursuing in the coming fiscal year includes confined space training to guarantee our team knows how to safely operate in our basins and junctions underneath our roadways. CDL tanker endorsements for 2 of our team members so that they can legally and safely operate the division's jetback truck. Chemical spill response training to make sure that the stormwater division team members know how to prevent harmful pollutants from making their way into our streams and waterways. And stormwater control measure inspection and maintenance training to become certified in the best maintenance practices for ensuring pollutants such as sediment doesn't make its way into our streams. This will also include a professional membership and as well a conference, attending conference, the Tennessee Stormwater Conference for all of our team members so that we can learn and grow among some of the brightest minds currently working in stormwater in Tennessee. We'll also be focusing on a stronger safety culture through updated PPE and additional safety training. Another focus is going to be improving operational efficiency. So this means doing more tasks in-house and doing it smarter. Things such as a trailer-mounted hydroseeder, which improves ditch stabilization efforts and reduces long-term maintenance needs. Adding the small tools and equipment line, which is not currently in our budget. That is something that we operate out of the 300 supply line when we need to get tools. So this would be a focused budget line just for purchasing tools that we need and the equipment that we need. And then targeted overtime to support community initiatives like National Cleanup Day. So some of the items that would be in this proposed budget that will help us achieve the mission of this stormwater mission. It also includes the purchase of a Ford Lightning from the Streets Division to ensure our team has the vehicles that it needs to achieve the tasks at hand and support operations. The purchase of a pole-mounted inspection camera to enable the Stormwater Division to quickly inspect hard-to-reach culverts and assess their condition without the need to get down in them. This would be especially useful in catch basins along Morrison Springs, Dayton Boulevard, and Signal Mountain Road, where their depth can pose difficulties for assessment currently. And then so as I mentioned earlier about the addition of small tools lines to be used for things like saws, consumable like drill bits, saw blades, a transfer pump, a toolbox, confined space, handheld air tester, things like that. This budget also includes strategic use of the contractual services budget line. So the funding in this line has been set out specifically to address specialized needs beyond our in-house capabilities. This includes on-call engineering services for drainage improvement projects, professional pipe inspection services for inaccessible infrastructure where you would need higher class equipment that we cannot afford, nor do we really need to own. And then the iWork annual services contract and beaver mitigation efforts. So that has been a unfortunate issue is the amount of beavers that we have in Stringer Range. So that is something that we will have to address. And then also new technology and data-driven management. So we'll be upgrading field technology and data management tools. This includes replacing outdated Microsoft Surface and one Microsoft Surface tablet with an iPad for improved field operations. This is incredibly important just because the ArcGIS suite that we have recently implemented in stormwater is not compatible with the Surface tablets, and you have to use an app-based field data software, which would be useful with the iPad. A new cellular and data line for that iPad, and that would be used by field operations personnel. Enhanced GIS mapping capabilities with ArcGIS, so we would have one additional personnel added on to the ArcGIS software package. A new PDF editing software suite that is, in my view, better than Adobe. And then again, the pole-mounted inspection camera for assessing underground stormwater infrastructure. And then The last key focus is infrastructure and asset protection. So with fiscal year 27's proposed budget for stormwater, the intention is to address longstanding drainage needs and protect critical assets across the city. This means replacing deteriorated and damaged pipes with new infrastructure and upgraded in treatments, drainage culvert replacements, ditch stabilization, and erosion prevention measures. This means expanding the supplies budget from $6,000 to potentially $20,075 for city-led infrastructure improvements. And then also enhance safety equipment for confined space work, hazmat response, and crew visibility. Here is the overview of what we would potentially be looking at in this budget. You'll see that highlighted in yellow are the two new budget lines, 310 and 312. 249 was a budget line and 990 was a budget line in the fiscal year 26 budgets, but they were unfunded, so those would also be getting funding. You can see on the right column the change that we would be looking at. The most significant ones are 300, which is the supply line. The small tools would be getting a $5,100 infusion. And then 942, which is the major equipment, that would be for the Ford Lightning, the hydroseeder, and potentially the pole mounted camera is what would be coming out of those lines. And I can speak to more of those if you guys have questions on that. So here's the overview. What we would be looking at for fiscal year 27, the expected revenue, according to this most recent budget sheet that I just got, would be $533,500. The personnel expenses we would be looking at is $404,080. And then for operations plus capital expenses, we would be looking at $333,342 for a difference of $203,922. This represents a potential drawdown of the fund balance for stormwater of 37.3%. And that is, I know, a significant drawdown. But one thing that I would like to, I guess, indicate about this is the majority of these expenses are one-time purchases. They're not recurring annual expenses. So this is something that hopefully in fiscal year 28, this would be a much smaller ask. But this is basically bringing up the operational capacity of the stormwater division to get it to a point where we are able to tackle more projects in-house, do so safely, and do everything that the division is capable of and should be doing. So the proposed fiscal year 27 budget delivers a stronger, better trained stormwater team, greater operational efficiency, smarter technology and data-driven decision-making, proactive infrastructure protection, strategic contractor partnerships, and a budget aligned with the division's mission. Thank you. And I imagine you guys have a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brill. So just to clarify this for the public, this is all from our dedicated stormwater fund, which is the fee that you're assessed, every year that's on your tax bill. Is it $70 right now? For a single, right, right. $70 a year. And when we increased that, that was the first time it had been increased in like 18 years. Yeah, that was 2 years ago, I think, maybe. Okay. And we also, haven't, help me understand clarify if I'm not speaking on this correctly, but, we had the ARPA funds that paid for our first ever, asset inventory and management plan, our stormwater asset inventory and management plan. And it sounds like some of the funding that you are, proposing to budget for would be for some repairs that probably were identified in that. Yep. In that process. Okay. And I don't know if you want to speak on any of that in a little more detail or if somebody else has a question. But I just wanted to kind of
so
talk about that.
The increase of the supply line would be basically giving us the ability to purchase the pipes and all of the associated materials that we need to do some of the installation work. Right now, the $6,000 that is in the supplies is woefully inadequate for the amount of work that we need to do. So that represents a substantial increase that would give us the ability to do quite a substantial amount of pipe installations and repairs. And then also included in the contractual services is on-call engineering services so that we can start identifying the work that needs to be done on a few high priority areas, specifically Benjamin Lane, Pine Breeze, and there's one other that I'm blanking on right now. But that is, so we can go ahead and start moving on a couple bigger projects. Yes, ma'am. So yeah, and that will definitely be focusing on some of the projects that have been outlined in the stormwater asset management plan.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Vice Mayor.
I did have a question also related to the stormwater inventory. We were able to make a significant investment in our first ever stormwater inventory thanks to ARPA funding. But my understanding is that's kind of a snapshot in time of what our stormwater infrastructure looked like when that was completed, which I think was over a year ago at this point. Will those cell phone expenses that you mentioned, the iPad with GIS capabilities, will that help you keep that more of a living document with updates and that sort of thing?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So with ArcGIS Online and field maps, which are usable on the iPad, and Davis, who is in the audience this evening, has been my mapping guy, probably getting driven insane by how much he's had to do this. But basically right now what we're doing is he's going out into the field, and we are actually not only adding to or taking and inspecting the work that was done by Marge with the asset management plan, but we're actually adding to it because they only measure down to a certain threshold pipe size, and then none of that was anything below that threshold was not captured in the asset management plan. So we're actually backfilling the data now and adding to it, which potentially just means that, you know, as we start doing more advanced stormwater calculations, we actually have a better scope of, you know, what are the pipes that are going to be carrying this water. So it's not only are we now, you know, taking that data and acting on it, we're actually able to start adding in new data to it.
Okay, so not only are you able to update the condition of tiles and pipes that have already been documented with their current status, but you're able to add into the system new pipes that weren't mapped in the original inventory
Yes,
because they were below the gauge that was included? Okay, thank you. One other question for clarification. Did you say that you were purchasing the Lightning from the Streets Division?
Yes. Is that
That's-
going to be your presentation?
You're gonna cover that, or?
No, but I'll address it. So we got the two Ford Lightnings several weeks ago, and, you know, we've suffered an issue with charging capacity, which we have since resolved. We have our own chargers at the public works garage now that we can plug into. But one of those was a take-home truck for the street supervisor. And those trucks, while they are zero emissions and, you know, they don't burn fossil fuels and all of that, they do have some limitations. And one of those is battery capacity. They do not hold more than about 180 miles.
About that, not 200 yet.
Yeah, and so Caleb lives about 30 miles away. And for him to drive home and not be able to charge the vehicle at his house, and then gets called in the middle of the night and has to sit and idle and then drives back home, it puts that truck at a great risk of running out of power. And so we've discussed the option of him continuing to drive. He has a fairly new F-250, continuing to drive that because he is called in frequently during the overnight hours. But we also saw a need because if you remember this time last year, we weren't talking about a stormwater supervisor and we didn't budget for stormwater equipment per se. And we did have a heavy duty pickup truck in the stormwater division, but it was being used daily by the 3 employees, stormwater specialists. And when Lewis took over, it became his daily driver as a supervisor and took it away from them. So now, anytime they go anywhere, they have to drive the jetter truck or a dump truck. And so we talked about getting another truck. When we realized we had this little issue with charging capacity and the fact that Lewis lives very close.
So 1 minute.
And the truck, you know, frequently he goes out to the work site and parks at that location, and that truck is well lit for safety. And so we talked about the discussion about getting another truck, but then, you know, saw the opportunity here to keep from, you know, paying full price. The stormwater division is going to purchase that truck for $48,000 from the street division. We'll give him another vehicle, and then Caleb can continue driving the truck that he drives, the F-250.
So my question was more of a technical one. Is that going to count as revenue then for the street division? The purchase, is it like a transfer of funds basically from the stormwater fund to the streets fund for that amount? Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So it's not actually an expense, it's more of a transfer, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Commissioner.
The camera of which you were speaking,
Yes, ma'am.
that's in the supplies?
It would be in 942, which is the capital purchases of equipment.
Okay, and that is to go underground.
Yes, ma'am. It has I believe, a 20-foot reach, so you can go down to catch basins that are potentially 20 feet down in the ground without having to send personnel down in there, which greatly increases the speed of inspection. So we can basically just pop the cover off and then just get the camera out, look at it really quick, do a 360 scope, see how the pipes are looking. And then we have it right on the iPad, which that's another benefit of getting the iPad to have connectivity with that camera.
So that's also part of the cell phone expense or supplies or small items of equipment?
That would be, so it's under 942, under the capital line.
Yes.
So that would be
yes,
general purpose, it's labeled general purpose machinery is where that would come out of.
Okay, I just didn't know where in this it might be
I
held.
got you. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
got it there. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yep.
So if you had to go back from your start, the work orders that have been filled and the future work that you're planning, if I had to ask if it hadn't been done or if it stayed the same way, or if you don't get new equipment, how do you foresee the stormwater system working or not working?
Mhm. What I'll say is I think we've developed an operational capacity to meet a lot of the needs that we can do. I think there's a lot of inefficiency in how we're doing things. And also, as someone who's just safety conscientious, I think right now there are unnecessary safety risks potentially we're introducing ourselves into without some of this equipment that I think it would help just make sure that our team is operating in the most safe capacity that we can. But I mean, we do have the capability to do a lot of the work. It just is more time consuming and more labor intensive than it necessarily needs to be.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I think the nature of your question was, are we making a difference in the system, when our
Oh,
rates
right,
are? I can add anecdotally, when Haleen came over, about a year and a half ago, we got 5 inches of rain in 24 hours. And personally, that was the biggest storm that I had experienced. And my sense was our system handled that. I didn't, even the WWTA system, we didn't have any sewer overflows either. So both the wastewater that WWTA is responsible for and the stormwater, which the city of Red Bank is responsible for, handled that event well. And I think that kind of event would have been problematic for both agencies in the past. So to me, it was a thumbs up on the work that Public Works team is doing. But can you speak more just off the top in your gut? How's the system doing with our TLC?
The system is doing well. I think especially we just conducted our first total walkthrough of Stringers Ranch and found a lot of things that we were able to remove from the stream that would have potentially posed hazards. It also gave us a pretty good insight into what the stream's condition is in a lot of areas and what work is necessary. I do think the capacity is there, but there is also the need for greater efficiency so we can do more service or do more work orders and get better service out of the system.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rupp.
If I could add, while we have a superstar at the podium, oftentimes in stormwater, it really isn't a system-wide failure, it's a particular home or a group of homes where it's kind of a point failure. And so when we have an A team who can get out in front of those issues, we kind of know where the problem areas are, and they probably need a little higher level of TLC on a recurring basis so that a particular set of problematic homes or streets don't flood, not in a Haleen type event, but just in a heavy rain type event. And so I think that speaks to the level of service delivery that our in-house team can stay on top of more consistently. Any thoughts about that?
Also, I can just kind of add to that, the one flood that we had during the May rain was due to a brush clog that happened right at the Newberry Railroad crossing, which was due to Norfolk Southern chopping and dropping, as they call it, brush along there right away, and then it washed and it blocked one single pipe. And that was all it took to flood out the entire intersection. So kind of to your point, that's all it takes is just one little bit of maintenance neglect or, debris that's put into the into the ditch line to create a, localized flood right there.
Any further questions or comments?
I want to clarify if I am understanding the big picture correctly. I think in the past, Red Bank Stormwater has suffered a lot in just simply not knowing what we had, and now we have that inventory. And then we suffered from, not being sufficiently staffed. And now we have, it sounds like, acceptable staffing levels. But now maybe the bottleneck or the choke point in really opening up the progress that we can make on our stormwater system is just equipment, supplies, and training.
Yes.
And so that's where you're trying to expand the capacity of your department here with those items.
Yes, ma'am.
And quite a few of those items, as you said, are one-time expenses. So you're expecting a lot of those, like the lighting, of course, and the cameras to last for a number of years.
Yes, ma'am.
So we won't have that, like you said, that drawdown on the account in
Right.
next year, for example.
Right, yes, ma'am. And that's something the team is extremely conscientious with the tools that we do have. They take phenomenal care of all of the vehicles, and I expect good lifespan out of all of the tools and equipment that would be purchased. So that would be something that I don't foresee these expenses recurring every year, every other year. I foresee us getting a lot of good utility out of each of these pieces of equipment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
So we're equal to one from outside. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Gravy.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commission. I hope you all are well. I am proud to present the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Division's proposed FY27 budget. This budget both allows the division to take on new initiatives while continuing work already in progress, such as required compliance, strategic activation of city-owned property, and long-term sustainability of parks and recreation services, especially for our programs and community events. The goal is to ensure that future investments are intentional, coordinated, and fiscally responsible. All planning and investments are guided by the city's Parks and Rec Master Plan, Commission goals, and the CIP. Our mission is to provide quality recreation opportunities that enhance the health and well-being of all residents of Red Bank. Every item in the FY27 budget has been evaluated against this mission, whether it improves access, safety, program quality, or long-term sustainability. Often when people think of Parks Division responsibilities, they often think of Ron Swanson or inspecting playgrounds. But in fact, there is so much more. We oversee planning, programming, project management, grant administration, staff supportive advisory boards, and establishing relationships and managing contracts with our community partners. For just 2 full-time employees, we are constantly balancing day-to-day operations with long-term planning goals. Specifically for grant management, between FY24 and FY26, the Parks Division has successfully been awarded over $700,000 in grant funding. The majority of these grants require no local match, while others allow the city to strategically leverage local funds to greatly expand project scope. Grant management is a significant workload, from writing applications, passing resolutions through commission, and not to mention, once awarded, working through compliance and reporting requirements. However, these efforts allow us to deliver improvements that would otherwise not be possible through the general fund alone. Our FY27 focus areas are intentionally structured. We begin with required compliance, then we move into the CIP with the activation of park properties, followed by system improvements and expanding programming. This includes deferred maintenance, wayfinding, streamlined reservation and permitting, and increased programming for our active older adults program, all designed to improve usability, access, and operational efficiency. The Land and Water Conservation Fund, or LWCF compliance, is a federally mandated requirement and is not optional. A formal conversion application, as stated earlier by our city manager, was submitted in February of 2026, and we continue to work closely with TDEC and the National Park Service. Completing this process honors the city's past commitment and protects the city's eligibility for future federal funding and ensures the long-term integrity of our park system. In fact, I got off a conversation with TDEC this morning, and they have let me know that we can expect the National Park Service to start taking looks and reviewing our packet once they are done reviewing and awarding current grants for FY27. So those got submitted in April for LPRFs, LWCFs, etc., and they should take until about June to award those. Then they will switch over to looking at our compliance applications. Yeah.
It's gonna happen
It
this year.
is not a if, it is a when, but that when is still a mystery.
Okay.
For the activation of the North Red Bank / Hickson property, per the CIP, the proposed $125,000 match from the Hamilton County Leading into Communities grant allows us to leverage an additional $125,000 in grant funding, resulting in a $250,000 project for phase one. Phase one focuses on essential infrastructure, ADA access and ADA parking and ADA bathrooms. And this construction documents that will help support future development while keeping us on track to meet compliance deadlines. As a reminder to the commission and the public watching, that once we get our compliance letter from the National Park Service, we will have 3 years to have active recreation happening at this site. So this preps us and gets us ready so that we can complete phase one, and then we will be prepped and ready to be able to go after LPRF grant funding in the near future. For phase one activation for the former Red Bank Middle School site, also per the CIP, the FY27 budget proposes a $200,000 investment to begin preparing the site for controlled public use, including temporary event infrastructure, ADA access improvements, and ADA restroom accommodations. This phase does not represent a full build-out, but establishes a functional starting point that allows the city to use the site for city-sponsored events while long-term planning and phased improvements continue. Jumping over to our contractual services, we are asking for or proposing an increase of $42,897, being a 41% increase from FY26. This largely is driven by professional services, required compliance work, safety, and operational improvements. This includes planning services, inspections, recreation software that also has a one-time activation fee, and specialized maintenance such as controlled burns. As you may know, we had another fire at Stringer's Ridge. This time it was completely over on the city of Chattanooga side. We actually met with the Tennessee Forest Service today, Chattanooga and Hamilton County, and we're discussing different burn prevention. And with our MOU that we have finally gotten activated with the city of Chattanooga at the end of this past calendar year, we're in a really good place to start looking at and being able to tackle and do a lot of this fire prevention in the near future. Many of these costs are annual and predictable, and they are anticipated to improve efficiency, customer service, and risk management. I also did want to take a second to jump back and talk about the recreational software. We are currently using recreational software called RecDesk. It has, after 2.5 years of implementation, it has not met the needs of what we are needing to do. We are also not able to run any kind of third-party service to do credit card payments online. So it really prevents us from being able to streamline all of our reservations, our permits, etc. Parks and Recreation is taking in community center applications, vendor permits, special park use permits, as well as now pickleball tournaments, and looking to also be able to rent some of our other facilities. Currently, with the systems that we have, it's just not possible to do that. We're having to jump between 3 different programs right now just to make that happen. And that puts a lot on our program coordinator. So streamlining into this new software will allow us to be a one-stop shop for all of our permits, applications, reservations, and registrations.
Can I ask a quick question
Of
about
course.
that? Maybe, I don't know what you were gonna ask, but about as far as, the $150 deposit that is required for the community center,
Vice Mayor before me and now me, I have to sign checks to send back that deposit every Friday. Instead of just maybe placing a hold and on a credit card. Is it gonna allow us to have that option?
That's one of the things that we're hoping that the admin software will be able to do.
So I know that the Edmunds software, from speaking with them,
Mhm.
it does have that capability. It just comes back to if we have any certain bylaws or things like that, that
Okay,
we would have to do check reimbursements versus credit card.
I don't think so. I think that that was a practice that had just been carried over. So.
Perfect.
as long as they have the capability, then there's a pretty good chance that we would be able to
And
start
I-
using that.
I do know that they have the capability because
Okay.
that was one of the main questions that I asked. Because I know that both of you have spent many an hour signing your name, mostly for those
$150 check
reimbursements.
reimbursements, yes. Because thankfully, for the most part, people who run our community center take care of it, so they get their deposit back. But yeah, I think, what I always think about just streamlining things, making it more efficient, and also saving some paper where we're not having to print out on these on the expensive check paper potentially.
Exactly. And the annual software subscription is about $800 to $900 more a year than what RecDesk is. But again, it's going to be able to allow us to streamline all of that into a one-stop shop for everything. And so we're excited to be able to use that. It'll free up our program coordinator as well to put her time to other tasks instead of being bogged down by 3 different systems.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a question, Vice Mayor?
Well, considering you have exactly one employee, I think it would be very good to definitely make her job as streamlined as possible, considering the many responsibilities that you both have. I did have a question also about the payment, the new reservation system. Would it allow you to make reservations at the White Oak Pavilions?
Yes, so we put it in for FY26 to be able to do that. We put it in the fee schedule that Director Slade put together. We did not have all of the resources for our division to be able to execute that properly. And I was not comfortable putting that on our program coordinator because of what it would have bogged down for us. And if we are not able to execute something at full capacity, I don't believe that we should be executing it. And so this will allow us to start renting out the upper pavilion by the upper field at White Oak Park.
Okay, I get asked that question a lot, so I think
I
that'll be a welcome
get a
change.
birthday question about twice a week for
Yeah.
that.
So it wouldn't necessarily be something that would be required. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering how it would be indicated that the pavilion is reserved so that, because the traditionally people have, it's first come,
It
first
is in
served,
first
right?
come, first served. We will actually be putting up signage that
Okay.
we will be putting in when it is reserved and when
Okay.
it's not. And we also, per our Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we had them help us come up with some parameters on that. And they believe that for Sunday through Thursday, that it should still be first come, first serve.
Okay.
And so the rentals that we were trying it out will be on Friday and Saturday.
All right,
Wonderful.
thank you.
The last 2 things I want to speak to on this contractual services is one that is the FY27 commission goal for a wayfinding and signage package. This will help us not only identify where we are missing signs, but there's some areas where there are old signs or multiple different signs that may be conflicting. This will also help us identify and help the public figure out where our parks are, to be able to know where different things are. Lots of people don't realize that Red Bank City Park is city-owned property and not part of the church. I have had residents that I've talked to that didn't realize that we have a dog park, and they've been here for 20 years. So that signage and wayfinding will help us get that out there. And then also it will have a standardization for all signs. So if something happens to them, just like our facilities manager, if a street light comes and gets knocked over, he knows exactly what to buy, where to replace it, et cetera. So it'll streamline that process. And then the other one is asking for $15,000 for park maintenance and improvements. We are working on creating a deferred maintenance plan through GIS. And so being able to execute those things as we are talking about in our capital improvements plan, starting to activate and build out new park spaces, we want to make sure that we are still having a high standard of excellence for all of our other parks. Oh, there we go. Next, I want to talk about our special events and programming. The total amount shown includes grant funding and sponsorships, with the city's direct allocation of approximately $32,400. These funds support a diverse range of community events and expanded offerings for active older adults. Programming and events remain one of the most visible ways the Parks Department connects residents and public spaces. So something that CFO Chris Pickle asked me to do was to budget in our anticipated sponsorships for events, mainly our Christmas parade and festival and our Jubilee. So we took the average of what we do every year and put that into our budget. And we have also put in there a $25,000 grant that we will hear back about in June, which will be able to allow our active older adults program to have art classes weekly instead of seasonally once a month. So we will hear back from that. If we do not get that grant, we will still work with partners to be able to do those. We just unfortunately won't be able to do them weekly like we had planned. In closing, the FY27 budget prioritized compliance, thoughtful activation of park assets, expanded access, and long-term sustainability. These investments allow us to responsibly manage public resources while continuing to grow recreation opportunities for the community. I'm happy to answer any questions this time.
Any further questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
I know it's not in this budget, but looking forward, do we have any kind of aspiration for when we might have programming for folks under the age of 55 and kids, I'm thinking of in particular?
For sure. I think that when we see what this new reservation and registration software is able to do for us, taking off some of that load from our program coordinator, then we'll start aiming at working on getting outside entities to come and help us with that. And so the big differences between the active older adults and the other programming is that the active older adults program is 100% subsidized by the Parks and Rec budget, where all other programming would then have a fee associated with it to pay for those teachers. And so we are working out a system for people to be able to sign up saying, this is a class that I can offer, but we still need to be able to have the capacity to handle bringing that in, reviewing it, and then putting it together. Another piece of that is that anytime that we have city-run programming, again, I talked about if we're not going to be able to do it excellent, we shouldn't be doing it, is that my expectation is that we have a city staff at that program. So let's say that we're having a line dancing class in the evening that anybody can come to. I would still have the expectation that our program coordinator or myself is there. So if there's an emergency or if something comes up, there is a person who is trained and familiar with the site to be able to execute any issues.
Mary, do you mind if I have a comment?
Please.
In this space too, we rely on our license holders as well. The boxing club tends to have a younger demographic. The Red Bank Youth Association, of course, operates our fields, and that's kids baseball, softball. And then our pool advisory committee operates the pool. So we do have some programming. It's not directly run by the city, but it's authorized by a license agreement to use our facilities. So I know it's really not what you're getting at, but it's probably a roadmap to follow. We're not going to be able to do everything for all ages with direct city staff. And so finding partners and license holders and nonprofits. Another example is the work that White Oak Bike Co-op does to activate the traffic garden. I think that's really probably a blueprint for us to follow. The history of the active older adults really was an outgrowth of Seniors on the Go, which was just a group of people who came together and they had a champion and a sitting commissioner at the time. And that really worked for years and years and years. And it just finally no longer worked. And so we had to move into that service delivery with staff. That was the genesis for actually adding our second park professional. That has worked superbly. Frankly, we didn't know how well it was going to work. We knew it was going to work well, but it's worked fabulously. And so when you look at that mosaic of how we provide recreation services with nonprofits, with direct staff, license holders, it's kind of, I think that kind of gives you some sense of the path forward. As needs emerge through the PRAB and the master plan, then we can double down on finding means to meet those needs. That will be probably a match of who wants to help us do it and what is the demand in the community, and where we get that match, like with White Oak Bike Walk. They were in the bike business. We had throwaway asphalt, boom, we got a traffic garden. Over to you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I would also, and I don't mind sharing it with the commission again, but our calendar year-end report that I submitted has some really impressive numbers on the Active Older Adults program, and the number of participants that Tegan has grown it to is over 400 individual users that come for over 10 different programs.
It's incredible.
So she is, if she's not doing reservations or over at Food Truck Friday, she's with the Active Older Adults and running that program. So it's really a capacity thing at this point, and so it will be relying on key partnerships like I have here to help us move that. And then also we're starting to see the needle move on private business asking to come and do special park use permits. A great example is Spark Studio. They now will have done, I believe, 2 free yoga classes at Red Bank City Park at our stage and in the green space there on Saturday mornings. And it's something that they said they would like to continue to do, maybe on a quarterly basis. Another great example is we have folks that are doing 5Ks, fun runs, etc. We have Be Caffeinated, who will be putting on another zombie fun run, and they will be utilizing Godsey Ridge this year in the community center. So we do have partnerships like that happening that the city, Parks and Recreation, does not have the capacity to run themselves, but really private business seeing how powerful it is to jump in the Red Bank community. I think we'll see more and more of that of people wanting to put on those types of events.
Definitely.
If we build it, they will run.
That's right.
Away from zombies.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions? Oh, Commissioner?
Thank you. With the Food Truck Friday and the Food Truck Saturday, are there any funds that come to the city from any of the food trucks?
So the only way well, okay, 2-part. One, over in community development, there is a food truck permit. It is a year-round permit. And so it's a one-time fee per year for $150 if they are outside of Red Bank and $50 if they are inside Red Bank. That was changed in FY26 and the fee schedule. And the reason for that, because I was part of the team that was helping with that decision, was Red Bank food trucks, if their business is located in Red Bank, they pay taxes in Red Bank. So $50 for their permit fee, whereas the food trucks that are outside of Red Bank do not pay taxes directly to Red Bank. They pay to wherever their business is located, and so that fee is $150.
Okay, thank you. And I know the Active Older Adult programs are fee-free.
Correct.
Any chance that there would be a low fee from participants, or you're strictly keeping it fee-free?
As of right now, we're looking to keep it 100% subsidized, so that there is no barrier for any active older adult that wants to come participate. We do have people that have come on various different means of transportation, whether it was carpool. We've even had one person come before in the Carta Caravan. We've had people come from local senior living facilities where they come in a bus together. And so those, keeping it 100% subsidized, so there's no fees for them, allows them to come participate and build community.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Baby. Next, we have Mr. Hedrick, our facilities manager.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Those of you who may not recognize me.
Where in Red Bank is Justin?
Currently here. So tonight I've prepared a brief slide for you. Our scope, recent accomplishments, current challenges, and the proposed FY27 budget. Role and scope. Our division maintains the city's physical assets, including 26 buildings, 3 parks, 6 pavilions, 8 softball fields, a community pool, and citywide lighting assets. And within 2 to 6 years, we'll have 2 new parks that will require facility maintenance. Our focus is keeping these facilities safe, compliant, functional, and ready to support daily operations and public use. Workload and results. Between July to April 2026, we completed 528 work orders covering both repairs and upgrades. This included required inspections such as AEDs, fire extinguishers, backflow devices, and ADA-related items. Overall, we maintained consistent response times while meeting safety and compliance standards. Key improvements. This year's work included major HVAC and plumbing replacements, safety and accessibility upgrades, sidewalk repairs, LED conversions, and targeted improvements across facilities and parks. These efforts help extend the life of our assets and reduce future costs. Challenges. We continue to face challenges related to aging infrastructure, increasing service demands, and rising costs. Long-term capital planning remains essential to avoid reactive repairs and higher expenses down the line. Budget snapshot. Total budget $786,798, a decrease of $14,203 from FY26. It includes a new capital improvements allocation, along with funding for ADA assessments and staff training to support compliance and safety. Commission impact. With your approval, this budget helps protect city assets, reduce long-term maintenance costs, and ensure facilities remain safe, compliant, and reliable. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you, Mr. Hedrick. Just to clarify, the 920 line under capital for buildings and ADA, that's the $75,000 that we had talked about allotting for maintenance throughout the year. Is that correct?
That's for the capital improvements line. So we'll still use the maintenance and repair 266 line item for our daily operations and repairs.
Okay.
And then, large items such as HVACs on this roof here, still $20,000, $30,000 upgrades, improvements.
So that would come out of the capital line.
Yes.
I see.
Large
Okay.
items.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I do, please.
You do?
Okay.
Okay.
You said the total is 786, but on the, am I looking at it
I noticed that
wrong?
as well, 728, 351.
Yes.
On page 15. I noticed that sitting out here, not marked it.
Let's see.
728, 351.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so 728, 351. Last year's, the FY26 was 800,001. So a larger decrease in $14,000.
We don't know what that reduction is from.
So on the 266 line item,
Mhm.
we went from 107,000 down to 80,000.
Okay.
And then several utilities, water, electric, several of those have come down.
Okay.
Our LED conversions are paying for themselves.
The what?
The LED conversions.
Oh, yes,
Saving energy.
absolutely. Okay. So pretty significant reduction. Any other comments, questions? No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hedrick. We look forward to seeing where you are tomorrow.
One grammatical correction, he said, we have done these number, he has done these number of work orders
Yes.
because he is a one-man show.
Now, I do get a lot of support from all departments. I could not do what I do with everybody.
Thank you.
Give you just a quick fleet update. I didn't prepare a slide for fleet because there's a couple $1,000s in savings and his budget remains pretty consistent from year to year. His biggest increase is this year is COLA, but he's still $2,300 under last year's budget, because last year we bought a lot of software updates for the diagnostic tools that he uses on our vehicles. And those are good for a couple of years. So next year we'll come back and this budget may increase by $10,000. So, you know, it's kind of give and take from year to year what his needs are as far as software. Other than that, you know, his budget is mainly funded by Public Works, Fire, and Police. You know, that's where all the parts are bought. This just reflects his and Adam Knutson's salaries and the few tools that they use. So, if you got any questions on fleet.
Is that where the reduction, so saying FY26 forecast for line 312 went from 17,629 down to 5,064? That was what you
Last
were
year
just
we had
talking about?
We had about 2 software packages. I think one was 9,000,
Okay,
one was around 6. And so he will buy those again next year when they need to be updated.
okay. Excellent, thank you. Any other questions about that? Okay.
Yes, I just prepared a few final thoughts. This budget report provided by staff, and let me thank the commission for blessing me with this wonderful staff. And, you know, I think about half of everybody in here works in Public Works. And I appreciate that, because, you know, the service delivery that the city has taken on in the last 5 years has improved. I won't say it has increased, but it has improved. You know, we have a 48-hour response time for brush and bulk trash pickup. You know, we get a lot of complaints on Facebook about not doing it the way that we used to do it. But, you know, a resident can put a work order in and in 48 hours get the brush picked up. You know, prior to that, it was like, well, my brush has been sitting out there for 4 weeks, you know, and we didn't know. You know, maybe we didn't drive by that way, but now we do. So I appreciate the commission's support in the staffing and these fine folks here that are working to manage all of these budgets. Overall, the proposed budget show an effort to balance rising costs with responsible use of available funds, and while continuing to meet the expectations of our residents to have safe, reliable infrastructure and services. The Streets Division plans to use the proposed State Street Aid funding to directly support commission goals for safer transportation for all residents. The Safe Street Aid funds will be used for ongoing street improvements, safety enhancements, with a dedication to road signage, pavement markings, and guardrails. And let me say this, the State Street Aid also supports the Stormwater Division. There is a provision that as long as a stormwater asset is adjacent or connected to a road, we can use some of the State Street Aid funded for drainage improvements. So that's a plus that helps. And I think Lewis has probably done that so far this year. He mentioned his supply budget is $6,000. Well, I think that was busted back in December. So, you know, we're being creative at this point. These investments will not only improve traffic safety, but support beautification efforts across the city and help maintain clear, well-marked, and visually appealing roadways. And as Mr. Gravy just discussed, the Parks Division budget shows a $335,548 increase, largely driven by the conversion of the North Red Bank / Hickson parcel and phase 1 activation of the former Red Bank Middle School site. As Mr. Gravy explained in his presentation, while the remaining minor increase is primarily due to cost of living adjustments, employee benefits, yada, yada. The Stormwater Division is included in this budget, as Mr. Brill mentioned, several necessary equipment purchases, including a line camera for system inspections. Now, I would say that, you know, we've tried this route before, and we purchased a camera about $8,000 worth about 6 years ago, and we got a little handheld device with a little screen about like this, and it had no connectivity. What Lewis is proposing is a camera that will connect to an iPad, and they'll have a full view screen, and they'll be able to use that iPad and ArcGIS and Mr. David Skadron's sleuthing ability in stormwater and be able to pinpoint. You know, he talked about walking in Stranger's Branch. Well, it's one thing to walk Stranger's Branch and have a notepad and write down what you saw, but it's another thing to have an iPad and you can use GPS data and mark that location and build your database as you go instead of having to come back and transfer it to a computer. So that was part of, you know, what he was talking about, doing things safer and smarter. Even after all these expenditures, fund balance is projected to remain at approximately, and I think on his, I think you said 63%. We'll get together and we'll figure that out, because we both looked at it together and separately. But there is a substantial amount of fund balance that will be retained even after using about $203,000 of fund balance for these one-time purchases. And that way, they're essential for stormwater staff to perform safe, reliable daily operations and protect the city's infrastructure. Okay, now, I said I was going to talk about solid waste. So the solid waste division faces some significant financial pressure. Projections are showing the fund balance to be nearly depleted by the end of FY27, due in part to rising operational costs, such as vehicle maintenance, fuel, tires, disposal fees. And the point that the mayor, question the mayor asked, it was 2009 was when the ordinance was set for a price of $192 per parcel, per residential parcel per year. Now, we do have some commercial properties that have our service too, and a lot of those pay twice that for us to pick up their cans at some of the small offices. So this fund has not had a fee increase in 17 years, when a garbage truck cost approximately $175,000 and a brush truck was between $120,000 and $140,000. Today, comparable trucks are well over $250,000 each. And part of the reason that fund balance has been depleted, we used to carry about $750,000, and about every 3 years we would buy 1 or 2 trucks and get that back down to $250,000. Since then, we have increased our residential capacity and the demand on these vehicles. And then we had those issues where I think there was 3 different vehicles that we bought 1 year that didn't come in for 2 years and 3 years, and then 2 of them hit in the same budget year and just nearly wiped us out. And we're taking a bigger look at that. And we're going to evaluate what a solid waste fee adjustment may look like in order to contain our current level of service. And when we have that, Scott Johnson and I have been working, the city manager and I spoke about it. And when we have what that might look like, then we're going to propose that probably soon. Just because if there's one thing, Scott, I think he had it in his slides, but he didn't say, but everything that every household takes in has to be taken out at some point or other in some form of solid waste. And if you let the solid waste, if we just decided we were going to pick up garbage for a week, this place it just look terrible and smell bad.
And be unsanitary.
But you can look for that, for us to take a good hard look at that. And then, I'll just go out there and throw it in too. The stormwater fee was changed, but I think we need to take another look at it and adjust it slightly to make it so that stormwater is more sustainable, because we do have some projects that are going to cost tens of thousands and even millions of dollars if we execute them. And so we're going to have some funding to be able, just to be able to go out and take all of these studies that we've done and be able to turn those into projects and then go out and seek other sources of funding to help, like a grant, just like we do with the streets. There's grants out there for stormwater, but we have to have the capacity to pay our matching percentage back on those so we can execute those projects. And with that, that concludes my budget. I guess everybody's glad.
Wow, way to go, everybody. That was quite a feat. Are there any further questions or comments at this time? Vice Mayor?
When you say soon, about coming back to the solid waste fee, are we talking this budget cycle, or are we talking, separately?
It will be separate from this budget cycle. It may be in near weeks, but it will be separate from this budget cycle.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Director Tate. If everybody's okay with it, we'll take just a quick 5-minute break before we move on to our next presentation from Director Slay. All right, wonderful. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for bearing with us. We are going to just do a little swap. We're going to first have our municipal court budget presentation with our court clerk, Alicia Donahue, followed by Director Slay's community development presentation. All right, good evening, Ms. Donahue.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Alicia Donahue. I'm going to present the FY27 judicial budget estimate. The request at a glance is the total ask is $187,199. Fiscal year 26 was $193,358, so approximately under $6,200 less than the last one. So I'm going to go over a couple of the goals of the court. We want to improve the organization through digitization process, training and networking to stay up to date on all things court, use technology to communicate better and improve productivity in the organization, and explore options with a collection agency to be able to collect more and more funds. With that, some of the challenges are collecting those funds. So we want to increase awareness with the public that we do offer flexible payment options for funds and costs. We want to improve the process within our limits for collecting these funds, because once they're past a certain age, the only way to collect them is through collections. And then we want to address financial hardship affecting payments of funds and costs by ways of maybe public work days and community service to work off some of those funds. So this is a look at fiscal year 25 ending and then revenues. And then through April 24th, we've collected $140,086.25. Usually about this time, we do get a jump in that number from April to the end. I don't know if it has to do with tax season or what it is, but that's when a lot of our payments come in. So an overlook at the budget. In recent years, it's averaged around $188,000 to $193,000. FY27 does reflect a deliberate shift downward. The decrease is primarily due to restructuring our personnel. We're shifting from 2 full-time and 2 part-time to 1 full-time and 3 part-time, which includes the judge, the deputy clerk, and the court assistant. This also reduces long-term benefit obligations. Our personnel, you can see, is the biggest bulk of the budget. The ask is $148,049. The change in that is due to the structure of this staffing. Full-time salary costs did get reduced, with part-time does increase. This does reflect the COLA. The FICA and retirement costs are directly tied to those salaries, so they do decrease with staffing restructure. And the overall personnel expenses has reduced by nearly $22,000 compared to the ask of fiscal year 26. The operations have increased by $16,000, but this is something we expected due to the digitization project. It does cost $16,000 for the software and the storage. This will go down in years to come as other departments implement the digitization and start using the software and the storage. The training, travel, and supplies do remain about the same as every year, because our training that we have to go to is required. So we must attend those, and they are not available online. So with this, it maintains the operations while improving the cost efficiency. There's only one request here in the capital spending. That's the $600. To prevent having to buy new computers, we're going to purchase warranties, extended warranties on the existing computers to look at computers in the future. Our current equipment is sufficient to support our operations. So overall, the spending is reduced, and we remain committed to maintaining service levels and meeting community needs. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you for that. Where are we in the digitization
This
process?
is a very good question. We are supposed to be finished at the end of this month with our scanning. I did a site visit last week. We had our municipal court clerks conference in Murfreesboro, so I drove on up to Nashville to visit my records, and I got to see where we were at. We have a meeting, I believe, first week of May. They're supposed to be coming to show us how to use everything. Once they've confirmed everything's scanned, and I confirmed that I'm happy with everything that's scanned. We will have a training meeting to learn how to use the system. So.
Wow. How long has this process been going on?
3 years.
Okay. Wonderful. So, wow, what a magical day we have coming up.
Coming up soon.
So with once everything's digitized, then the process, I mean, then they will be, shredding or disposing, in a confidential.
Correct.
Way.
There's a TCA we've had to follow to make sure that everything's scanned and stored properly.
Mhm.
And once that is done, then we can destroy them and then we will get a certificate showing destruction. So.
Okay. Wonderful. All right. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner?
The contractual services has jumped.
Yes, ma'am, that's the digitization. The 16,000 is what we have to pay for the storage and software.
Okay, that's what that is.
And then as different departments come on board with this, that number will decrease in the court's budget and will move to the other department's budget.
Okay,
So
thank you.
we'll
I had written that, I just hadn't had it in that correct line. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Donahue. We appreciate you. All right. And moving on to our final presentation of the evening, our Community Development Department presentation, Director Slay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So this presentation will walk through our mission, core responsibilities, key focus areas, and the operational adjustments reflected in this year's proposed budget. So our work is guided by a clear mission to implement strategies that expand economic growth and investment, encourage meaningful public engagement, and support cohesive frameworks for high-quality development across Red Bank. The Community Development Department serves a broad and interconnected role within the city. This includes land use planning, economic development initiatives, code enforcement and compliance, professional services contracts, grant management, and various collaborative partnerships. Fiscal year 27, our work is centered around 4 primary areas. One being commission goals. Next is unified development code. Third, code enforcement. And finally, our participation in a Tennessee Downtowns program. The Commission's goals provide a roadmap for transportation improvements, development of a capital improvements plan, explore sanitary sewer expansion, activate park properties, and pursue environmental awareness and improvements for Stringer's Branch. Both the Community Development Department and Public Works are aligned and will work in tandem to advance these Commission goals. Next, we have the Unified Development Code. This is a major initiative this year, and it is for the development and adoption of a modernized Unified Development Code to support quality growth and predictable outcomes. Once completed, the UDC will serve as a foundational policy to guide future development and further support the goals and objectives identified in the Red Bank Comprehensive Plan just recently adopted last year. Code enforcement remains a core function of the department, with an increased focus in fiscal year 27 on dilapidated structures and neglected properties. Staff will work to mitigate blight, reduce safety risks, and help preserve neighborhood character when legal enforcement actions become necessary. If you recall, we've had several properties that we have kept an eye on. We've moved through the condemnation proceedings, and ultimately those properties have been cleaned up at the property owner's expense. So we hope to see some redevelopment, some new construction happen on those parcels in the coming months. As a selected participant in the 2026 Tennessee Downtowns program, staff will work with state and local partners to strengthen Red Bank's downtown through a 2-year effort. Central to this program's success will be the commitment of our Downtown Steering Committee, which includes downtown business owners and property owners who accepted the call when an initial application was submitted, and they are now eager to rise to the challenge that we have ahead. I do look forward to sharing more information as we go along this journey. First in that is next week, we will be planning a trip to Nashville for the inaugural activity. We will learn more from the program administrators. We will get to meet prior participants to hear success stories and to also hear more about their challenges, some of which we know they're going to face. So we look forward to a half day in Nashville next week. So again, as a recap, these 4 areas represent the department's strategic direction in this coming fiscal year. Next, let's take a look at some operational adjustments. First up is the Nonprofit Advisory Board. Fiscal year 27 will mark the conclusion of the city's nonprofit grant program, which was funded through ARPA allocations. Beginning in 2024, we had a total of 19 grant award recipients, all of whom are doing some amazing nonprofit work in direct benefit to our community. I do encourage you to visit our website where we have and will continue to highlight those efforts. In conclusion, this calendar year, the city will have made a total award to nonprofit efforts in the amount of $150,000 over 3 years. Next up is our CARTA. The budget does reflect a planned phase out of paratransit services funding due to cost and the prioritization of core services and resources. Rising operational expenses have made it difficult to ensure long-term operational sustainability within the city's current budget constraints. We will, however, continue and to have collaborative conversations with CARTA, and we will gladly return to commission with new information on potential funding resources that may or may not come to light. If you recall, last year we did benefit from Hamilton County's allocation to CARTA to help subsidize some of Red Bank's paratransit use. That is proposed again this year, but again, we wait for budget cycles to come through. We have no guarantee. Also, previously, we've utilized a transportation grant, which CARTA applied for and received those funds.
Mhm.
Those did run out. And then, of course, the full weight of the service did fall back onto Red Bank. We'll have some more questions later. I'm sure we'll have some more details, and I do have more information on ridership at this time.
Director Slade, are you gonna talk about where, so you said the proposed budget includes the planned sunset, so that's under contractual services, and
Yes.
that's just for like the half a year?
Yes, we have $50,000 to get us through December of 26.
Okay, so out of that 250,000, okay.
Previously, we utilized funds from State Street Aid. We also did a budget amendment earlier this year to get us through the rest of fiscal year 26.
Okay, thank you.
Next, in some operational adjustments, we're going to be looking at implementing a succession plan. We do know this is a one-time investment, but it supports the succession planning efforts for our building officials position. Timing is crucial to ensure continuity of our department's regulatory function, and this strategic approach reflects a proactive commitment to organizational stability and long-term operational resilience. Our current building official anticipates a retirement coming up probably in fiscal year 28. So what we are proposing is probably spring of 27 is we will start to cast the broadcast to see who may be interested. It's a long journey to get through that. There's a lot of certifications that come along with that position. Not everyone has them at the same time. We would be hopeful if we found someone, but again, that's the intent of succession planning, is to give yourself plenty of time to find a capable, competent replacement and put those efforts into motion. So taking a real quick look at the proposed budget details, my fiscal year 27 does reflect a 9% overall increase, but it aligns with the resources for departmental priorities. The total proposed increase is $46,405. Previously, the director's position was supported in part through the Stormwater Utility Fund. This year, we are proposing that this position would be fully carried within the Community Development Department. If you recall, when we outfitted the entire Community Development Department, these things were talked about. How do we slowly roll into that full load? So this is where we are. Also proposed are some grade changes for our community planner. I think that was mentioned earlier. His professional duties and responsibilities have really increased, especially in the areas of GIS mapping and technical assistance across all city departments. One of the biggest roles, I would say a silent role that he does play, is maintaining our legal compliance with Hamilton County's GIS. They are the gatekeeper of our official zoning map. So, start to finish, when a property gets rezoned or something changes, it can take upwards of 6 months, before it actually is reflected on those maps. But they also have some regulatory standards that have to be met. We don't just make a phone call, and ask them to change something. So it does require a heavy lift. And again, behind the scenes, there's a lot of work that just happens, and we get to see the benefits of that. We do reflect a slight reduction in some operational expenses, particularly with engineering consulting services, while still supporting the department's anticipated needs. Past 2 years, we've done a lot of engineering services. We have a lot of contractual plans that we have. So in the community development department, another one of our initiatives is to how do we activate some of those plans? So we've really transitioned from the how do we know what we need? Now we have some plans, so internally staff is capable of carrying that torch further. So in conclusion, the proposed budget does position staff to advance key initiatives, and it also supports the city's long-term visions and goals.
Thank you, Director. Sorry, I was looking around. I didn't realize that Ms. Pickle had left. The number in this budget estimate is different from what you have in your slides, just like it was for
We will follow
another.
up with her tomorrow and make sure that we reflect those.
It's pretty significant.
Oh,
Like
my apologies. You may be looking at the overall summary. My department does include animal control contracted services.
Oh,
That's not
okay.
county. So
Okay.
you will see that in the
Okay.
summary, not versus the individual. On page 9 is where you will see animal control contracted services. That does fall under my
I
responsibility.
see. Okay.
Yeah,
That's what the difference
that's the
is.
significant
Gotcha.
difference.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Yes. What if we were to continue CARTA paratransit, what would be the cost?
So we have had ongoing conversations with CARTA, with their team. We have also communicated with Hamilton County. What CARTA is proposing is based on ridership of what we've seen, and I'd like to give you some of those numbers as well. In 2025, this was utilizing grant funding as well as some support from Hamilton County. We served approximately 23 users, and they accumulated a total of 1,294 total trips. In January of this year through March, we have serviced 16 users, and we are at 539 total trips. This is anticipated to have a fiscal year 26 ending of around 1,100 total trips. And as you recall, back in January, we did have a resolution come before commission to add an additional 50,000 to support CARTA through this fiscal year. Moving forward, based on some of those estimates and those numbers, some of the projections that CARTA is proposed to us was a couple of scenarios, but the most visionary scenario would have us serving 2,800 trips. And that would be a total cost of $173,600, that full bill. If there were contributions from Hamilton County, as well as successful grant application from the Transit Authority that CARTA is responsible to go after and manages, then Red Bank's portion could be reduced down to $70,000. With those numbers in mind, again, the recommendation to sunset, to make any changes to CARTA does not come lightly. Keeping in mind our capital improvements plan, we are trying to upfit and be funded without any control, without any oversight on how other programs may run or could or couldn't be improved. It simply comes down to a revenue stream. Can we afford to fund that at full cost if we don't have any other revenues that came in? So that's where we've landed on the 50,000 for fiscal year 27 to sunset.
Can you say again, how many riders have we had in this fiscal year? Individual riders?
We do it by calendar year, unfortunately, on the billing.
Okay.
So just January through March of this year, 3
Mhm.
months, we've served 16 users
Okay.
at a total of 539 trips.
Okay. And then what was it for, you have
In
from July to
2025.
December?
You
Or-
estimated it will be 1,100 trips total if you keep going at this rate.
Correct.
1,100.
I'm just trying to figure out how many individual riders are accessing this service throughout the year.
It fluctuates. Like I said, the first year in 2025, we served a total of 23 users.
A total.
Total of 23 individual users.
And then the subsidy that the county provided for us this year was $9,000, correct? Ish.
Ish.
Okay, it was not a significant amount. And it was the same amount, I think, that they also subsidized for Eastridge, who also utilizes the CARTA paratransit service. And as of this fiscal year, they don't actually have any funds that the county budgets itself for CARTA services at all. Other than this, subsidy that they provided to us and to Eastridge. Correct. Okay.
So the scenario that we have been presented with is at that cap, if it was the max at 2,800 trips. There's a couple of things that are going into that. We have seen an uptick in those users. Some of their marketing, some of their accessibility, some of their technology changes opened that portfolio. So that's when we saw that uptick of use. What is being requested of Hamilton County for the highest scenario is their contributions at $70,000 and a grant opportunity at $33,600.
Well, considering they were only committing $100,000 to CARTA before they cut that out of their budget, I don't believe that they would consider $70,000 subsidy just for us, but maybe it is an election year.
Well, Director Slay and I had a conversation with a member of the county commission, and I don't want to speak to that person or the commission. But
Sure.
my takeaway was the support was lukewarm.
Sure.
That would be my expectation on the
I mean,
county and public transit in general, which is all the more important why our city is unfortunately left holding the bag. If we want to provide those services to our residents, it's going to have to come out of our property taxes, because the county, I would love to be wrong about this, but historically the county has not been very helpful on public transit, especially in recent years.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask about the grant too. Like you were talking about the 70,000 plus a potential grant. Is that something that you were saying that CARTA was going to?
Correct.
Okay.
It is specific to transit authorities only. The city of Redmond could not apply directly for that.
Okay.
We would help support that application if they did submit it.
Okay.
Now, CARTA would not be able to apply for that grant if we were to discontinue the service.
I think it's available for their paratransit as a whole.
So they would be applying that grant to our service area.
A percentage
in
of that
that
would be
scenario.
applied to us.
I see.
Yes.
The 33,000 is not the total grant amount, it's the
Correct.
percentage that
That would be the
would,
share that potentially could be, subsidized for Red Bank services.
right, unless we don't have any services.
Correct.
In which case we get zero of that $33,000 grant money.
I do not know what CARTA's long-term plans are. And I will be very honest, that's one of my challenges professionally. Although I understand and I value the service, because you do have to be qualified to utilize the paratransit service. It's not just, I couldn't pick up the phone and call and use it, neither could either one of you, if you didn't qualify. So there is that filter that does happen. The types of uses, we don't restrict that. I know other jurisdictions have put some constraints in there to try to manage their budget as well. Again, if the need is there, then where the destination is may or may not be our business. But again, not having an inside influence or voice that helps to determine what other resources might be available and how best to utilize. Again, it just presents a challenge for me in community development, other than to constantly come back to commission and ask for revenue to support the program.
Well, I'm sure you wish you had a crystal ball as much as the rest of us.
Yes.
Mind if I add to this comment? So Leslie is sharing her frustration with, if I can call it that, with really just being not able to drive the expense side of the equation. We're just we just don't have any management influence over that. And that's one structural headwinds that we face as a city in this construct for paratransit. And none of us in this room are speaking disparaging of any of our partners, CARTA or the county or anywhere else. But there is some structural things that create headwinds. And one of them, from my perspective, as city manager, is that there's a lack of a tax base dedicated for transit in this area. And so you're trying to piece together general governments like Red Bank or even Hamilton County, where the demand on their tax dollar is everything from soup to nuts. And you're trying to push through that revenue stream of general service delivery taxes sufficient enough on the expense side to sustain transit. And I just don't think that's going to work. The region needs to have a tax base that's dedicated to transit as a foundational level of revenue for CARTA. Then the municipalities, any other jurisdiction that benefits from that service can marginally and incrementally add on to that. But that foundational level of tax base for CARTA doesn't exist anywhere in this region. And so it's left to the jurisdiction and the fare. And that's a big bill to pay. And those structural headwinds are what we're facing as a city of 12,000 to try to pump enough revenue into this to get service delivery in our geographic, very small area of this region. Our riders are going all around the region, and that drives cost for CARTA. And so these structural headwinds, when you look at the region's construct for transit, make it difficult for a small city like Red Bank to jump in and start swimming. I think there needs to be a conversation regionally about a tax base dedicated for transit. That way, when taxpayers pay their taxes, they know where it's going. It's very, very difficult for small cities like East Ridge and Red Bank to carve out enough money from their general fund to sustain transit. It's just really hard to do. And honestly, it's the same thing for Hamilton County. It's really hard for a general government to sustain transit when the only other money in the equation is fare. So that's my assessment as your city manager, that structurally there's bigger problems than we can fix when you look at trying to fund and provide transit services.
And I want to make it clear, I don't want to give the impression that the paratransit service goes away, that is not what is being proposed. What is being proposed is Red Bank's subsidy portion of that. So paratransit continues through CARTA. That is their system. That is how they operate.
They would just have to take on the full fare.
Correct. The financial burden would be back on CARTA. We would, again, if we sunset, we would no longer be subsidizing Red Bank shares.
Now, tell me if I'm wrong, historically, that's meant that people in Red Bank don't get picked up.
Again, operationally, we don't manage the program. I'm not sure, prior to Red Bank contributing and subsidizing the program, I'm not sure what that user base was prior to Red Bank's contribution versus what it could be after.
Having been here before, and even having temporary disability before the service was available, and when I could have used it and it wasn't there, my understanding is that Red Bank paratransit CARTA services were not available to Red Bank residents. If you called and you tried to register, you tried to qualify, they say, where do you live? Red Bank, sorry, we don't serve that area, because it does cost them money, and it's not fair. Somebody's paying that bill, and it's not Hamilton County, it's Chattanooga. And it's unfair to expect Chattanooga tax base to pick up the bill for us that we're not willing to pay. And I wholeheartedly agree with the city manager that it is absolutely idiotic that any kind of transit system would have to be primarily funded by any local government. It should be a regional consideration first and foremost. But the fact of the matter is that it's not. And the fact that it should be regional does not solve the problem for our neighbor who's trying to get to work tomorrow morning. And that's the person I have to answer to from this bench, is the person who has to get to the doctor, who has to get to work, and calls paratransit 6 months from now and they say, sorry, we've had to discontinue service to Red Bank.
So part of the I would assume part of the reason why we're sunsetting this in December is to have the opportunity to communicate with the current riders about what that timeline is going to look like, so that we can also, I don't know, ask the question of, can these riders continue to utilize your service if they are paying for the fare themselves?
It would definitely open up that dialogue with Carl.
Right.
Twofold, not only to provide those current users with information and a plan, how do they adjust from that? But it also opens the opportunity for us to continue to explore additional funding resources.
Right.
That again, you know as well as I do, usually in May and then early fall is when grant applications become available, but they're on a cycle. So again, pushing this to the end of December with that $50,000 contribution makes those two conversations viable.
I hate having conversations that quote unquote we can't afford something, because everything is a matter of price. So I did some calculations on my personal property tax bill, and according to my calculations, the property tax rate that the city manager has proposed of $1.29 would mean that last year in 2025, my municipal tax bill was $837.41. And in this coming year, if we were to accept the $1.29 rate, my property tax bill would be $1,102.31 for the year. That's an increase of about, I have a mortgage, so it's amortized on my mortgage. So that's an increase of about $22 a month. And I have an above average assessed value home for Red Bank. So we would be looking at a slightly lesser number on average for your average Red Bank resident. That works out to every penny of property tax costs me, myself, at my address, $8.54 a year, or 71 cents a month. So according to that calculation, in a worst case scenario for CARTA paratransit, if we had to pay the full $173,600 bill with no other changes, full ridership, no subsidies, no help from the county, that would cost me $28 a year, or about $2.33 a month. And for my part, individually, I would be much happier paying an extra $2.33 a month on my mortgage than looking my neighbors in the eye and explaining to them that, sorry, you don't get paratransit anymore. So, I do want to preface this by saying, I speak passionately on this topic, and it's not directed at any one of our staff. I understand there's a lot of constraints and a lot of balancing that's trying to happen, but I also want to express, for my part, where my priorities lie and who I have to speak to and answer to, this is a no-go for me. I'd rather pay and have those services be available to those who need it in our community.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I don't think any of us up here want to take a service away from our community that we know is used, even if it's only 23 users in 1 year. As a social worker, I understand all of those gaps that exist out there for our neighbors who have, unique needs like that for transportation and housing and food insecurity and all those kinds of things. Unfortunately, we cannot help all of those problems. And we are very fiscally constrained with our revenues that we have in our city because of the nature of government. We're very, and government in this state and tax codes in this state make all of our cities very property tax dependent. And at a certain point, we have to have really hard conversations about, unfortunately, is $173,000 like a justifiable cost for 23 users in Red Bank versus something else? I don't know, something else. that would, development of the Red Bank Middle School property that would benefit, the whole community, would be more accessible to the whole community and visitors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That kind of like investment in that property, we would get a lot more return on the investment. And not to say that we should be thinking about humans in terms of return on investment. But because we are running a government, we do have to be fiscally mindful of those things. And so that's just where my head goes. It's a very hard position to be in as a social worker. I got a special certificate in grad school in gerontology, working with our elderly population. So I'm acutely aware of some of the constraints that they personally face. Unfortunately, I have to set some of those things aside, my own personal feelings, and look at this kind of, from an outside perspective and as a whole in the context of the whole budget and all of the services that we provide. And we can't provide all of the services. We just are not able to, on top of the fact that CARTA is literally in its name supposed to be a regional transportation authority. And it's just not. It does, like, as you said, as Mr. Granum said, it does not function as a regional transportation authority when Chattanooga is the only jurisdiction paying into the general public use of CARTA. They can't, as you said, sustain that. So it's a much bigger conversation in my mind. And to your point, Mr. Granum, having a tax base that's supportive, I think about what Nashville did two years ago. They had a huge transit referendum. Spent months and months and months going out, educating the public, talking to the public, getting their buy-in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was a vote. It was a ballot vote for them to raise the transit tax for transit investment, and it passed. But that's because they did a heavy lift with the public. And, I feel like I would love to see all of us here in Hamilton County band together and do something like that. But I don't know how to organize that or how to start that conversation or if it would even go anywhere. But that's, I think for certain things like that, that approach was the way to go to get that buy-in from the community. So they knew, to your point, where those taxes were going. And they said, yes, we want them to be invested in this particular service. That's just where my head's at. But anyway, we're not making decisions tonight, but if anybody else wants to speak on that or has questions or comments, please feel free to jump in. That's right. It is a proposed.
Staff, it is our professional responsibility to provide you the information that we see. How do we maintain something and at what expense? If you recall, especially with the capital improvements plan, we've talked about the dreams and the dollars. There has to be a balance. Not everything makes its way forward. Some things have to be put on hold until additional funding opportunities come along. I'm not saying that paratransit could never happen in Red Bank, and I'm not proposing that we shelf it and never have that conversation again. I'm just trying to be fiscally responsible with what we're trying to achieve here in Red Bank and how we benefit the communities as a whole. Again, CARTA has a huge hill to climb, I believe, just from that regional perspective. Again, we maintain conversations with them. I'm hoping that something else will come along, but I have to give a budget proposal under the assumption that there is nothing in addition to subsidize other than what we put forward.
Just like we do with anything, even when we know, like Chief Seiler, we know pretty sure we're going to get that $1,000 Tennessee American Water grant, but we can't count on it, right? We can hope for it and, anticipate that it's probably going to happen, but we can't count on it. And so we have to say, well, we're going to pay that $1,000 for the supply, or whatever it's going to cover, just in case it doesn't come through. And that, to your point.
Would a compromise of some kind be available, like raising the fee share from $2.50 to $5, or limiting the number of rides per user?
It's my understanding CARTA is proposed to change to the ridership to $3.50 per way. So their round trip cost is $7 per user per ride.
And that's not something that we could adjust within our
Again,
jurisdiction. It
that's
had to be
not our-
system-wide.
That is CARTA. That is CARTA's mechanism, and that is CARTA's initiative to change, to adjust. Again, we are kind of on the outskirts. Even though we have conversations, we don't have influence and contributions to program design and program implementation.
Do we know any details about what other jurisdictions have done? Like, I think Eastridge, that have put limits on number of
Last
rides,
year,
for
they did
example?
Put some limitations on it, as far as I'm not sure they limited the number of use, but I think it was the location. It was where they were actually going to, and I believe they limited that to medical. We, Red Bank, have not put any parameters on its use. And I'm happy to provide you, they do provide me a monthly detail. We do verify that we are serving Red Bank residents. We do verify where those locations are. And that's in tune with what the paratransit program does offer. So again, we don't have any restrictions and limitations on how that program is being used.
Well, as much as I don't want to see anybody be homebound for any reason, I would sooner see us limit it to medical rather than do away with the program completely.
There are some organizations that will take patients to doctor's appointments.
Yeah, I recall Set D had some senior.
Sephora.
Yeah. And I also recall that Signal Mountain had paratransit at one point, and they discontinued that service, but they did phase in at the same time or increase a different, alternative service.
CARTA does have a good listing of available other resources, because keep in mind, if you don't qualify for paratransit, it still doesn't mean that you don't have a need for transportation services. So that they do filter through and provide those access to other resources when it's requested.
Yeah, I do recall Hannah, our MTAS consultant, was talking to us about when she was the city manager up there. That was when they had CARTA paratransit services, and they had to make the difficult decision to discontinue those services because they were too costly. I don't recall her mentioning an alternative, but maybe it's what you were talking about, that there's identified alternatives.
It's usually through the development districts.
Okay.
Their organizations do provide, I'm not sure about the details, but I do know that they provide a level of different services.
Mhm.
And as Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey has mentioned, there are some other nonprofit, non-CARTA related entities out there that do provide services to those that are in need.
If you have TennCare, if you have any kind of TennCare, they have transportation. So there's, I'm sure, other options, as Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey said, but.
Well, we're going to have at least 23 individuals who are going to be in need of those resources potentially.
That was the max use last year, was those 23. Forget what I mentioned earlier. This year, we're looking at 16 from January through March billing.
So far.
16 individuals.
Yeah.
And their ridership does adjust. It's not, sometimes we've had one that just showed up for one time, but we have several that are ongoing.
One of the questions I've had for CARTA, and I haven't gotten an answer to yet, and I'm not sure if they have this data or not, but the paratransit bus has the ramp, the wheelchair ramp, but in order to qualify, you only have to be over 65 or temporarily or permanently disabled, which could cover a number of disabilities that don't necessarily involve a wheelchair.
Correct.
So my curiosity was, what percentage of our riders, especially if there's only 23 of them, actually require that wheelchair ramp, and what percentage of them would also be able to be served by a more traditional rideshare service that might be cheaper.
I would envision, and I do believe CARTA is trying to work through some of those details, but almost like a tier system. If you need the full ride, obviously, if you have some physical limitations and have a wheelchair, those types of accessible needs, obviously, and maybe there is someone who only just is physically able and simply could utilize an Uber service, for example, something that doesn't require a full vehicle. And to operate those vehicles, you have to have people who are Class B certified, CDL Class B with passenger certification. So not everyone can just go work for CARTA and drive the paratransit vehicles. So
Right. And they're
there's
also-
challenges there as well.
And they're also less fuel efficient, so it's more expensive to operate them in general than a standard vehicle.
Correct.
So that's why I'm wondering if there's a way that we could still serve these residents and bring that cost per trip down by using a more traditional ride share of some kind.
Again, that's where I lean to Carta for some of those answers. Not saying we're not getting any answers. Again, they have a heavy lift and are doing a lot of work internally that we're not part of. But I agree with you. I would hope that would be on their horizon to take a look at, like I said, a possible tier system.
I also have some non-Carta related questions, but I don't want to monopolize Leslie's time if anybody else has
Any other
questions
questions
first.
or comments at this time?
No,
Okay.
ma'am.
Go for it.
My next question was about library cards.
Yes.
I see your budget includes $10,000, which is the same as the previous year.
Yes.
However, I have received a lot of feedback from our residents that the library cards run out, and people go to the library trying to get a Red Bank library card, and there's none left. And so I wanted to posit the conversation with my colleagues about increasing that budget line because we clearly have a demand for library cards that exceeds the budgeted amount. You know, even if we were only to go up to 12 or 15,000, we could hopefully meet that demand because I'm hearing a lot of frustration that people hear that there's a free Red Bank library card program and then they show up and they're told no and they're turned away.
I do know that the library program offers different opportunities, and I think we've talked about that before. If you have a child in the school system, there's that eligibility. There's a couple of other programs that they do have separate from Red Bank that they try to filter through first and then utilize the Red Bank cards. But yes, there is a limitation. We also do offer first new renewal opportunities for someone who had it last year to be able to renew. So we've probably seen some heavy use on renewals and not necessarily new activations, but that may be because they're renewing and those new people coming on board are just getting the remainder of the cards. But yes, we did put a cap on it at 10,000.
Well, they did, I know the library changed. I don't remember if this was last year or whatever, but they actually cover babies from 0 to 5 now. So you don't even have to have a kid in a public school system now. You can, if you have a child at all in Hamilton County, you can access a library card. Well, so that probably offsets some of that, but wasn't there something with, when we talked about this last year about verifying that the person getting the library card through our subsidy was actually using the library card and visiting the library and not like got it and then it sat in their wallet all year and they didn't use it?
Again, the library system, they maintain those records. We here at City Hall, we do not access those records, but they do provide feedback to us.
Okay.
We can probably get more detailed information on, I would say, regular use versus dormant use. We've had those conversations when we renewed again this year, was for them to be mindful of that, to be aware, are certain people using them or are they not? So it helped them have an idea of how many potential new users could be. So I can reach out and see what information I can receive and give you some feedback.
I think that would be helpful.
How much is it per card, or is it just a fee in general?
We're
I don't
covering,
recall exactly what it is.
I believe it's $50.
it's $50.
I know it's normally 50, but I didn't know if that was.
Yes, that is the price that we're paying. Is if it's $10,000, it's covering how many cards? 500, how many? I don't know
And I
math,
believe
sorry.
That's actually a standard Chattanooga Library, non-resident fees.
That's right.
Pay.
That's what I'm saying.
So if you're Capucin or Sail Creek, you can buy into the Chattanooga Library system at the same price.
Right. But we don't get like a bulk discount. Yeah.
I'm happy to put together a spreadsheet to try to get us some on the usage since the program's inception.
And I will say it doesn't quite cover all children in Hamilton County because it does cover all children in Hamilton County 0 through 5. We actually have a library card for my son through that program. So our library card is not one of the budgeted Red Bank ones. The library is basically covering that themselves, which is, I have mixed feelings about. But then, you know, they also cover children enrolled in Hamilton County schools, which does not cover children in private schools or homeschooled children. And then, of course, any families without children, which is a lot of households with 0 children enrolled in Hamilton County schools or under the age of 5. So there's still a lot of residents that we have to cover. And I'd hope and I'd like to think that when a Red Bank resident goes to the library asking for a card, that they are screening to say, do you have a child in Hamilton County schools? Do you have a child under 5? To see if they're eligible for those programs before they tell them no.
Yes, it is my understanding that is correct.
Right.
To walk through where they verify where you live, and then
Right.
they do, I would say, read out, what they do, they read out the opportunities
Right.
elsewhere before. It's simply a Red Bank resource.
Right. But unfortunately, that means that the reports I'm getting of people saying they were turned away is people that made it all the way through that script and didn't qualify for any of those other options. So that's the people I'm hoping that we might be able to expand even just a little bit to cover this coming budget year.
I will get you some information on our current users and what the usage looks like.
Thank you. Thank you. Last item. Good work. Nonprofit. You mentioned, of course, we know that our ARPA funds, out of the millions of dollars of ARPA funding that we amazingly received, we allocated just $150,000 of that for nonprofits. And then we spread that over 3 years.
Correct.
So it's been distributed at just $50,000 a year.
Yes.
In my opinion, the outcome of those micro grants have been remarkable. You know, getting to see the pet food pantries that McKinney put up outside our fire stations, getting to see the new refrigerators that were installed at the Red Bank Community Food Pantry so that now they can not just distribute milk and eggs, but it also allows them the capability to take donations from, like, when Family Dollar has milk that's about to go bad, they can take them and put them in their freezer and distribute them on distribution days instead of that food going to waste. It can go to families in need. And that's because of investments that we've been able to make because of this amazing nonprofit program that's been in existence. What I've seen come out of this program, you know, the return on investment, and granted, it wasn't our investment, it was ARPA funds, but what's been accomplished with that small amount of funds in terms of, you know, the benefits received back by our communities thanks to these nonprofit partners is remarkable. And I really hate to see that whole program just go away because ARPA funds ran out. $50,000, if we wanted to continue that in perpetuity, would be less than 1 penny of property tax to continue that program. So instead of $1.29, we could do $1.30. And
We
could,
do have the budget for it this year from the ARPA funds.
Correct. It is in your ARPA.
so we have this year.
Yes.
So when you say sunsetting, you're talking
It's after
about the
fiscal year
next budget
27. Yes, it's fiscal year 28, where we would
Okay.
have to have this conversation.
Because we have one more year of ARPA left.
Correct.
I think we use the term sunset with respect to nonprofit.
There was a sunset in there.
It was about Carter Pair Transit.
Yeah.
It's only about part, I've not
Yeah.
seen it.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
I'm just simply
I think
reporting.
staff intent is to, next budget cycle, come to the commission with a proposal to sustain that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
that's what's on my heart.
I'm very glad to hear that. I'm very happy to hear that because, yeah, that's, like I said, 71 cents a month on my dime. And I'm definitely seeing more than 71 cents a month of benefit in our community from that. So apologies for speaking a year ahead of budget schedule. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration.
Actually, Vice Mayor, if I could, thank you for championing it. It is on our minds and our hearts to sustain that. But we were happy to rely on the last year of ARPA before we really figured out how we would sustain it without ARPA support.
Excellent. Thank you.
Just a note, we will be prepared to release the application in May. We are hoping to have a early meeting in July. If you recall, this is ARPA funding, so we are obligated to spend those resources by the end of 2026. So there is this push, but it still is in the 2027 budget initiatives for my department. Make sense?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Do you have any further questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Director Slay. We will move on to our final item, citizen comments on items on this agenda. Mr. Grantham.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time for citizen comments. Citizen comments will be limited to 2 minutes or less here in the workshop. Please respect this city recorder's direction if time expires. Citizens are now invited to the podium. Please begin by stating your name and address.
All right, if we have no comments, then we will go ahead and adjourn this budget workshop number 4. Are you changing your mind? Okay. And we will return early at 4:30 next Tuesday for our first open discussion of what we've heard so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It was a great conversation.